Okay, well, Eileen, it looks like we're ready. Can we have an opening statement, please?
Township of Howell Zoning Board of Adjustment, Monday, January 9th, 2023. Reorg meeting and regular meeting. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be in open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on December 13th, 2022, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on December 13th, 2022, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on December 13th, 2022, said notice was posted in the office of the zoning board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and a decorum appropriate to judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For any members of the public wishing to ask questions or comment on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature when the chairman opens up the hearing for members of the public. Once you are brought into the meeting, you will need to have both audio and video, and you will be sworn in and required to give your name and address. If you are calling in, you could press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Eileen. Next on the agenda are oaths, and I think we have 3 members that need to be administered the oath. Andy, will you be able to do that, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we got Jose, Nicholas, and Mike.
I guess we will do them individually.
However you see fit, sir.
Well, I have 3 separate oaths of office here. So,
Okay.
So why don't we start with Mr. Orozco?
Mr. Orozco?
If you want to do them all at the same time, they're basically the same, except they have the
Yeah,
name.
okay. I'll do it. Oh, good idea, Eileen. We'll consolidate. So if Mr. Orozco, Mr. Ryan, and Mr. Barillo, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Michael Ryan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will
that I will faithfully,
impartially, and justly
impartially and justly
perform all the duties of the office
perform all the duties of the office
of the zoning board
of the zoning board
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
And I will support the Constitution of the United States
and
I will
that I
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear
that I
true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States and in this state,
in the United States and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Hey,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And then,
All
Eileen,
right.
I guess the members will turn in their oaths to you. or-
Yes, if everyone could sign them and mail them back to me, either regular mail or email, whichever is easier for you. Thank you.
You got it. Okay. Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barillo,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Here.
Mr. Hughes,
Here.
Mr. Mertens,
Here.
Mr. Roscoe,
Here.
Mr. Stanton,
Here.
Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Rubel,
Here.
and Chairman Saya.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to
allegiance
the flag
to the flag
United States of
of
America,
And to the
and
republic
to the republic
for
which
which
it
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
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 Indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now this is part of the reorganization. This is a new team. We have 3 new sworn-in appointees. So I would like to, amongst the board members, see if there's a nomination for chairman this year.
Members of the board, I would like to nominate Paul Saya to continue as our chairperson. He's done a fantastic job, and I think he'll do a good job, as he has always for us this upcoming year.
So we got a nomination by Mertens. Do we have a second?
I would like to second that.
Everybody, we second.
Mr. Hughes. All right, do we have any other nominations? Not hearing any. Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barillo,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Happily, yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes,
Mr. Orozco,
Double yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Well, of course, yes. Well, I thank everyone for their confidence in me, and I hope that we have a very rewarding 2023. All the best to everyone. Okay, do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Rich Mertens, please.
Okay, Hughes, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Was that Stanton? Yes, okay.
Yes.
All right, do we have any other nominations? Not hearing any. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Here.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Happily again, yes.
Mr. Mertens,
yes,
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, Rich. Thank you.
okay, thank you, and I look forward to this year, as you have already stated, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to welcome our new board members and Jose back.
Amen. Okay, well, now we
Nick,
have
on
enough.
One second, Nick, on these votes, you can say yes
Yes,
or
I
no.
just picked up on that. Yes.
Okay. thank you.
It's okay,
Sorry
Nick.
about, sorry
That's
about that.
okay, we won't hold
That's
that
all
against
right.
you.
Nick, you'll learn. It gets easier.
At least we know
Okay.
you're here, so that's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Okay, do we have a nomination for secretary?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to nominate Matt Hughes to be our secretary.
Cantor got a nomination for Hughes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a
Second.
second with Orozco. Okay, do we have any other nominations for secretary? Okay, not hearing any. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Orozco,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes, congratulations, Matt.
Well, thank you. I'm always proud to be part of this group, and again, we'll have a great 2023. Welcome to all the new folks, and if you have any questions, you can reach out, and be happy to help anybody out, and just look forward to the year. Thank you.
Super. Okay, so now we're getting on to item Delta, which is 5 Delta, and that is the consulting attorney. Fellow board members, do we have a nomination for the consulting attorney?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Andy Bear. Last year, it was kind of last minute, he came on the scene, but in this past year, he's done an outstanding job, and I would like to have him on board as our attorney.
Great, so we got Mertens. Do we have a second?
I'd love to second that,
second.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, both Hughes and Orozco are seconded, it sounds like.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Are there any other nominations for board attorney? Not hearing any. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes. Congratulations, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, board. I've enjoyed the first year of being part of the team, and I look forward to this year as well. Thank you for your support.
We're going to be counting on you, Andy. We need
Absolutely,
you.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'm ready.
great. All right. Fellow board members, do we have a nomination for a consulting engineer?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
yes.
Matt.
No, Glenn, go for it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Charles Cunliffe from the, I don't know the company, but Charles Cunliffe.
T&M Associates. Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Cunliffe. Do we have a second?
Second.
Orozco, seconds. Okay. Do we have any other nominations for board engineer? Not hearing any. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes. Congratulations, Charlie. You know,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say thank you for the board's continued support and look forward to hopefully catching Jack Mallon someday. I think I still got like 16 or 20 years left.
Yeah,
But
you gotta, Charlie.
working forward to it.
Charlie, you know, my pet peeve is stormwater management, right? And you know, it's huge the way the last decade or so as we come along, and you out of all engineers that I've known, you know, really have a passion for ensuring that stormwater management is maintained and we meet state statutes and so forth. So thank you. Consulting planner, fellow board members, do we have a nomination for a consulting board planner?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Jen Beam, I believe Leon Avakian.
Okay, that's Hughes. Nomination. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Stanton, seconds. Do we have any other nominations for board planner? Not hearing. Okay, Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes and yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Jen,
guys. Thank you so
you-
much.
you're our compass. So we appreciate you.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Jen. Okay, fellow board members, certified tree expert. Do we have a nomination?
I'd like to
Mr. Chairman?
nominate Sherry Spiro.
Go ahead.
That was Bill Stanton that nominated?
Yes, sir. Sorry, Glenn, I cut you off there.
It's
No,
okay.
it's yours.
All right, Bill makes the nomination. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second that.
All right, Cantor and Orozco seconds it. Do we have any other nominations for certified tree expert?
I have to apologize to Shari. It's not certified tree expert, it's licensed tree expert. so-
Licensed tree expert.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Eileen, for the.
Sorry, Shari.
Come on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Not hearing any other nominations, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes. Congratulations, Sharon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, board members, administrative officer. Do we have a
I'd like to-
nomination? And Eileen, when we say administrative office, this would be basically you of the township, correct?
Yes.
Do we have a nomination?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Eileen Urbano.
Hughes. Do we
I'll
have a
second that.
second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mertens. Do we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Eileen. I take it you get 2 of these, though. So board members, we
Lucky
need-
me.
we need a recording secretary. Do we have a nomination for a recording secretary?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Eileen Rabano.
Hughes, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Billy, you seconded. Any others? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Is there cake involved? Yes.
Maybe.
Mr. Hughes,
Rumbles, rumbles.
Yes, Eileen.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all you do.
Eileen, we couldn't do this without you.
Well,
And
now that I have
Eileen-
help,
and
it makes it a
Eileen number
little
2.
easier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the sidekick.
and the
Yes.
sidekick.
Well, she's learning from the best.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda, 5J, is the 2023 meeting dates. Do we have a resolution?
Yes.
I looked it over
I thought we
And-
voted on this.
and we did vote on it, but this is the resolution for it. And,
Oh. Correct.
okay, so,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to adopt that resolution.
thank you, Mr. Hughes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second. There you go, Mr. Mertens.
Okay, Mertens, thank you. All right. Once again, we're meeting twice here in January, twice in February, twice in March, twice, all the way through each month. And we've adjusted a few dates, and this will be shared with everybody, including the new members. Eileen, roll call, please.
Mr. Barillo,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Stanton,
Yes.
and Chairman Saya.
Yes. And I guess we'll publish this and we'll post it, right? So we're,
Yes, and I'll send a copy to all the members tomorrow, along with the new roster of all the members.
thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Great.
Okay, next on the agenda is the official newspaper. And that's to be determined by the governing body. Eileen, need your assistance here. I think Asbury Park Press and News Transcript are the 2 that we normally go with.
No, it's the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger.
And
The
the Star
Tri-Town
Ledger.
News is no longer a Howell Township newspaper. It's only in Ocean County, and it's specifically for Jackson. So we only have the Press and the Star Ledger this year.
Okay, Press and Star Ledger.
Yes.
Good. Could I have a nomination for the Press and the Star Ledger by?
You don't even have to do that because the council's already approved it.
Okay, great. So for all members, the Press and the Star Ledger are 2 newspapers where we publish. All right, Site Review Committee. Of course, the chairman is a member of that committee. You know, Glenn, you know, I know you like to do that type of stuff. Would you mind being on the Site Review Committee?
In my honor.
Great. Do we have anybody else that would like to be on the Site Review Committee? I mean, Mr.
We gotta put
Hughes-
Matt on there because
Mr. Hughes?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have the Site Review Committee. The
we
Rules
need-
Committee is pretty much made up of the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So Rich and Matt, you're both okay to be on the Rules Committee?
As long as we meet at the Ivy League at the end of the year, I'm good with that.
You got it. All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, did we get 3 on that site review? I know myself and Glenn.
No, the site review committee is myself, you and.
Oh,
Glenn.
you. Okay, great. Thank you, sir. I didn't get you on
Okay,
that. Okay.
it's okay. Rules committee will be myself, the vice chair and the secretary. And now we can move on to the regular meeting. Eileen, do we have any approval of minutes?
No minutes to approve tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any vouchers?
No vouchers tonight.
Do we have any correspondence?
I have 3 things for correspondence. So the first one is case number BA 2010 Route 9 Howell LLC has requested to be carried to February 27th, 2023 with no further notice.
Should be the last one on the agenda.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out, okay. Insight development. Okay.
No, it's Route 9. You know what? And revised agenda was sent out. You may not have it.
No, it's not on mine either, so.
Route 9
don't-
Howell LLC was inadvertently left off when we first sent out the links. So they just have to be carried to February 27th with no further notice.
Okay.
Case number 2010.
Case number 2010, for anyone that's here for Route 9 LLC, case number 2010. That application is being carried to February 27th with no further notice.
It's actually case 2110. I'm sorry.
2110,
Yes.
correction, 2110, thank you. Okay, next one, Eileen.
Case number BA 2117 NJ Solar 2000 LLC has
Yes.
requested to be carried to February 27th, 2023 with notice, and an extension has been granted through April 30th, 2023.
Okay, so for those members that are here for BA 117 New Jersey 2000 Solar LLC, this application is being carried to February 27th with an extension of time to April 30th, 2023. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, Eileen, next one.
Case number BA 2121 Countryside North American Partners LLC will be carried to February 27th, 2023 agenda with no further notice and granted an extension of time through that hearing.
Okay. All right, for those that are here for case number BA 21-21 Countryside North American Partners LP, this case is being carried to February 27th with no further notice, an extension of time as same.
I think both of those, Mr. Chair, we're gonna have to get some people to certify, right? Because Mr. Moretti's
Yes.
gone.
Yes,
Eileen,
when
will
I
you
send out, when I send out the agenda, I usually let them know. But for the sake of time, I'll let them know a little sooner. As far as NJ Solar, that's from 2020, I think the last time they were heard.
Yeah.
So they may have to actually start over. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think they've been waiting for DEP or something.
That was a while ago.
That was
Yeah,
the
it
one
was.
that's the one we walked, right? Rich and Glenn?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one we
Over on
walked.
Casino.
Yeah.
We definitely didn't visit it last year in 2022. We had to-
No, I'm pretty sure it was the year before.
So, Mr.
Yeah.
Bear, we're gonna need some guidance on that one.
Understood, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And then Eileen, if we are hearing it over, that's one thing, but if we need to certify, we need to identify those videos and who has to review them and so forth. That means Mr. Borello and Mr. Ryan have to catch up quickly.
Yeah, and Mr. Rebel probably has to as well.
Yes, sorry, Mr.
So-
Rebel.
I'll send them out an email, and if they want to start watching the videos, they can.
Okay, great.
Sounds good.
All right, so those 3 applications have been carried. There is an application that Eileen, there's no correspondence on other, so I take it it's on the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. So case number BA 22
Excuse me, Paul, 1 minute.
Yep,
First, we have to swear in the professionals, and there's also one resolution. I sent you a text about it.
Yeah, I got that.
If we could do the resolution, memorialize it.
Okay,
That was also a late addition. I sent the resolution out this morning.
all
I
right, so
can pull,
Mr. Bear, can you please swear in the professionals?
Yes. Jen, Charlie, and Sherry. Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do.
Your professionals are sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, do you need the resolution? I have it in front of me. If
Yeah, because I'm gonna need the number. If one of us is gonna make a motion, I need that. Because I did see it on the email, but
yeah, I have the email in front of me.
okay.
All right, make the motion, please, Mr. Mertens.
Well, no, I don't have the number.
It's Justin and Lauren Erickson, BA 22-18.
And the eligible voters are Mr. Cantor, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Mertens, Mr. Orozco, and Mr. Rebel.
You get that number, Rich? BA 22-18.
Okay, fellow board members, you heard who's eligible. Can we have a motion to approve that resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the resolution.
Cantor, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Orozco. All right, roll call, please, Eileen.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes,
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
and Mr. Rubel.
Yes.
Resolution approved.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Eileen, any other business before we move on to the?
No,
Thank
you can go right ahead, and I'm going to leave you for the evening and leave it to Eileen to handle the rest.
All right, Mr.
Thank you
Ronald,
very
thank
much. It was
you.
nice to see everybody.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Eileen.
all right,
Good
Good night,
now.
Eileen.
night, Eileen.
Okay, for everyone that's with us, case number BA 21-21. Nope. Scratch that. Case number BA 22-06. Insight Development Partners LLC. This is a use variance and preliminary and final major site plan with bulk variance. Application of Insight Development Partners LLC as applicant and JYK Inc. as owner seeking preliminary and final major site plan with bulk variances on premises known as block 78.10, lots 26 and 28, 4650 US Highway South, that's Highway 9 South, to construct 4 one-story and 2 two-story self-storage buildings totaling 125,000 square feet with associated site improvements within the Highway District 1 zone. A total of 10 parking spaces are proposed adjacent to the office, all of which are 90-degree stalls. Additional site improvements include several underground infiltration basins, lighting, landscaping, and signage. Expiration date, March 3, 2023. Okay, Mr. Bear, who do we have?
Hey, guys, I just wanted to reflect real quick. I might have to recuse myself. We own a neighboring property in my family. I don't know how everybody feels about that.
Mr. Bear?
Adjacent, like directly adjacent, Bill, or?
Across the street.
And your family owns it? You may want to, I mean, ultimately it's up
Correct.
to you, but you may want to.
Yeah, I mean, we own it. It's family property. We operate a business out of there daily, so.
Yeah,
Okay, Billy, so then there's no other business after this application. So then if you would like to recuse yourself at the advice of Mr. Bear, we accept your recusal and you can either stay with us, ask questions if you want, but you're not voting on it.
I appreciate everyone's consideration. I'm gonna go hang out with my kids, though, if that's all right with the board.
That works for us.
It works for us.
Have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bill.
Good night.
Billy.
Good night.
Okay, Mr. Bear, who do we have? It looks like we have an attorney that has joined us. Mr. Tim Arch.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. Hello, I'm here representing Insight. Preliminarily, can I just ask how many voting members we have now that the gentleman, Mr. Staton, has recused?
You still have 8 members.
Okay, excellent. So thank you. Good evening, members of the board professionals. Congratulations to the new members. Welcome to the wonderful world of land use. My name is Tim Arch. I'm from the law firm of Bob Smith and Associates, and I'm here representing Insight Development Partners. We are seeking preliminary and final major site plan with use variances to construct 4 one-story and 2 two-story self-storage facilities for a total of approximately 125,000 square feet, along with associated site improvements. Self-storage is not a permitted use in the HD1 zone, so it does require a use variance, as well as we're seeking a use variance for having more than one principal building, because we have 6 buildings in total. We're additionally requesting variances related to signage, parking, and fencing, as well as some design waivers, which we'll go into more detail through our expert testimony. Just in general, self-storage is a low intensity, what I call a benign use. As you'll hear, it's low traffic generating, low noise, low stress to utilities, no impact on schools, and it's really the perfect use, we feel, to abut residential neighborhoods. You'll hear tonight that we were conscious of the neighbors in the neighborhood while we were designing this site. Just some minor housekeeping. I would ask the board attorney if notices have been provided and if we're properly before the board.
The board has jurisdiction, Mr. Arch. You're good to go.
Thank you. I do have 4 reports that I'm going to be referencing. One is the Avakian Planning Report by Ms. Beam, dated November 10th, 2022. I have a T&M Engineering Report that was last revised October 26th. I have a single-page Fire Bureau Review Letter, September 13th.
Mr. Arch, all those things have been already entered into evidence as exhibits for the board.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that I had the most up-to-date reports.
Yeah.
The only other one was a CME tree review letter that was November 16th. So as long as I got all of them, that was it.
Mr. Arch, excuse me, 1 second. Eileen, who's alternate member number 1?
Mr. Ryan?
Okay, so Mr. Ryan's going to be voting tonight then?
Yes.
Or on this application, if it goes to a vote tonight. Got it. Mr. Arch, do you have any professionals that we're going to be bringing in?
We do. We have 5 witnesses tonight. I can name them now so that we can all bring them in, or I can wait until and bring them in individually, whatever you prefer.
I'd like to bring them all in and let's get them sworn.
Certainly. So Elias Salabi is our representative. Tom Mueller is our professional engineer. Justin Taylor is our traffic engineer. Rich Ben-Savenga is our architect. And John McDonough is our planner. That should be everybody.
All right, we need McDonough.
We have him. I think we're just waiting on, I don't see Elias Salabi. Oh, there he is.
Okay, on mute, gentlemen.
Okay.
Mr. Bear.
Yes, so Mr. Taylor, Mr. Ben-Savenga, Mr. Mueller, and Mr. Slaby, please raise your right hand.
And Mr. McDonough.
And Mr. McDonough, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Yes, I do.
And can each of you, I'll start with Mr. Taylor, state your name for the record, spell your last.
Justin Taylor, Taylor.
Mr. Ben-Savenga.
Correct. Richard Ben-Savenga, Bencivenga. GA.
Mr. Mueller.
Yep, Thomas Muller, Muller.
Sorry about
No
that.
worries.
Mr. McDonough.
Hi, everyone. John McDonough, MC, capital DON, OUGH.
And Mr. Slavy.
Yeah, hi, this is Elias Slavy, last name Slaiby.
Mr. Chairman, your witnesses are ready to go, or sworn in ready.
Thank you, Mr. Bear.
Thank you. As you can see, we have 5 witnesses, so we're going to try to be as efficient as we are thorough. Unless there's anything for me, I'm ready to swear in our first witness.
Well, the witnesses have been sworn in. I'm
ready to go to my first witness then. That would be Mr. Salebi.
So, Mr. Salebi, can you put your credentials on the record, please?
Sure, Elias Slavy, Director of East Coast Development for Insight Property Group. We are the developer and we have a purchase of contract, actually a PSA or purchase of sales agreement with the current owner of the property.
So Elias, can you tell us a little bit about Insight, about the developer and what you're planning to do with the site?
Sure. Can I pull up the presentation or you just want me to answer the questions?
I think you can share your screen. I think you have that ability.
Sure. We have a quick present. I'll make it quick. This is our standard. Obviously, we took out the technical stuff that our experts. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, so as I mentioned, Insight Property Group is a vertically integrated developer, operator, and manager of commercial real estate, mainly focused on self-storage along with industrial and multifamily projects. We operate in several states. We currently operate close to 50 stores, and we have over 35 projects under construction or development. We are looking to purchase this site to obviously build a self-storage facility. Just quickly, who are our customers? Basically homeowners that are under renovation or moving, or they're looking for more space, or they're storing for relatives. Based on our current market data, the market is underserved, where it's at 2.2 versus the square foot per capita, where nationally it's usually at 7 square foot per capita. And then based on our market research also, 10% of US households use self-storage. Just quickly, benefit of this project, and I know our experts will talk more details, low traffic impact, low impact on the infrastructure, and customers, they spend minimal amount of time on the facility, depending on where they are throughout the process. Security, basically we have 24/7 security system, controlled keyed access. Our facilities are only accessible during regular hours of operation. And we can talk later about, if you'd like, about the hours that we're proposing here. We have office hours and we have client access. And that's about it. We have here a couple photos. We take pride of the facilities we build across the nation. We build nice projects that blends in within the community, in different areas. It depends on the board and the planning board team. Basically, we pick different designs to blend in, as I mentioned. These are different facilities. They're either under development or construction or operation at this point. I think that's about it for me.
Thank you, Eli. If I can just direct you to, I'm going to go through a few of the specific questions that are in the reports. If I can direct you first to the planning report on page 7 of 8, under 5 additional comments. Specifically B, it says the applicant should provide testimony regarding the use of the site for typical hours of operation. Are those hours of operation that you showed us there? That's the hours of operation that we're going to be looking for on this facility?
Yep, we're proposing office hours Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Client access is.
Can you have to slow down because we're trying to write stuff down. So Monday through Friday, 9 to 6:30, right?
9:30 to 6.
Also, if I can interject, do we have this exhibit?
No.
No, we'll Elias, if we can mark this as exhibit.
Sure.
You guys prefer A1?
Technically,
So,
we're supposed
Mr. Ash, in the future, or I'm sorry, Mr. Arch, I apologize. In the future, these exhibits are supposed to be on file at the township because of the Zoom nature of this meeting, 48 hours in advance of the meeting. So, but I would say there's nothing prejudicial here, so we can go ahead and use this.
I will also note that the hours operation and a lot of the operational questions were provided in a report that was submitted that indicated our operation. So that this is in writing that was already submitted to the board. We're just going over it again because it was pointed questions in the development staff reports.
You may go ahead.
So Mr. Slavik, the anticipated maximum total number of employees, can you comment on that?
So we usually have 2 or 3 staff members on duty.
Okay, and are there shifts?
Yes, we have shifts. So it may add up to like 3 or 4 members or employees total.
Okay. Do you know the anticipated number of visitors you expect to have?
I mean, based on our analysis, we expect like 2 trips per hour. So if you're talking about here, I didn't do the math, I'm sorry. So, but if we're talking about 14 hours a day times 7 times 2, so 28 times 7.
Okay, and we'll get into more about the.
Wait.
Go ahead.
What's the number? Like I
200, approximately 200 a week.
Okay.
Jen?
Yeah.
10 p.m. It's a little late, no? How does that fit within the ordinance?
I mean, we allow drive-throughs open 24 hours.
Okay.
But I mean, it's important for you to know this is a use variance. So if there are issues associated with what's being proposed and you want to impose reasonable conditions like limiting the hours of operation, that's fully within your purview.
What did we do up on Sunnyside? Do we remember?
On Sunnyside, I don't remember. Do you, Charlie, remember?
I believe that they had some hour restrictions. There was definitely restrictions on lighting had to turn off after certain hours. The office hours were restricted to, I think, only weekdays and Saturday mornings, things of that nature. I don't know if I can't recall 100% off the top of my head whether they had 24-hour access to that.
All right, let's pull it because we want to be consistent.
Okay.
And again, just to note, there's a difference between the office and actual access to the site, client access to the site.
Right. Well, the client access is until 10 p.m. and that's the concern. Right.
Understood.
That, so as far as the board is concerned, you're talking, the site is going to be utilized 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. What transpired?
9:30, Jen, 9:30 a.m. Sorry.
No, 6 a.m. client access, 6 a.m. to 10
Oh,
p.m.
yeah.
7 days per week. And so the office falls within that, but the board is concerned with the outside bounds, which is 6 to 10, 7 days a week.
Understood. Elias, one of the questions here, is there any proposed vehicle storage that's going to be at the site?
No.
Okay. Is there any, can you talk about the refuse generation on the site? Or is that better addressed to Tom?
I would defer to Tom on the technical because I think he may need to share the plan. But I can tell you quickly that the dumpsters will mainly serve the building or our staff. It's not to be used by the visitors. So that limits the usage of the.
Is there a way to regulate that?
Yeah, we lock it.
Okay.
We have a gate that locks it.
Okay, bear with me one second, Elias. I want to get to the other plan or the other operational testimony.
While you're going to there, can I just ask them real quick, what about contractors coming in and out?
So based on the nature of this facility, it's a conditioned facility. Usually contractors don't use because the price range is not what they're looking for.
Okay, well, I mean, I understand your answer to that, but I mean, is it going to be, are they going to be allowed? If I'm a plumber and I want to store my supplies there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, it mainly services homeowners, and second largest users are small businesses.
Okay.
But no businesses will be run from that facility per se. You're not allowed to run a business from that.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Chair, just to add to that line of questioning, and I'm looking up the resolution to try to find about the hours on the other one, but I know on that prior application, we did have certain conditions that were imposed on no commercial operations out of each individual unit. Utilities are not proposed to any of the individual units. Not to be converted to habitable space, and then no hazard or material storage. I would think those would be prudent for this application should the board rule favorably.
Mr. Cunliffe, thank you so much. Mr. Arch, did you take
Elias,
note of that?
are we okay complying with all those? That's actually comment 10A through D on the T&M report, and we will comply with those. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, these would be also mentioned in our leases.
My last question is, are these storage units, are they going to be temperature controlled units, Elias?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further direct questions of Mr. Salabi unless the board professionals or the board have anything that they want to ask him.
Mr. Arch, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to be consistent with you know, our hours of operation, et cetera, you know, when it comes to these type of facilities. So
No, I understand. I guess at some point we would need to know exactly what those are that we're agreeing to. We're certainly okay agreeing to certain hours of operation. We just need to know what those are, what the parameters of those are beforehand.
And we're going to get those for you.
And
Okay,
Mr.
who
Chair,
else do you have? Yes.
while I'm still looking that up, I just want to ask two more clarifying comments because they did come up on other ones. So are there any auctions? Like if someone is delinquent on their payment and they get evicted, and are there auctions that occur for the contents of the units?
There are usually provisions that we take the possession if they didn't pay the rent, and we do that. But if there's a restriction, we will comply.
Elias, is it fair to say that though we won't conduct any of those auctions on site, that we would do them online?
I honestly have to ask operation, but whatever the board sees fit, we will comply if that's the concern. If the concern is bringing a lot of people in, yes, I don't think we are equipped to have stuff outside and people visiting. That's not our intent.
What I would say to that, Mr. Chair, is being that they're asking for relief from the parking requirement, I think online auctions wouldn't be an unreasonable request from the board.
And we would agree to that. Is that correct, Mr. Slaby?
Yes.
And then along those same lines, it comes up with a lot of these types of facilities, whether there's any U-Haul, renting of vehicles or storage containers, pod containers, things of that nature.
No.
Okay. That is all I have right now for use, Mr. Chair. I'll try to get you those hours soon.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Beam, do you have any?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any fellow board members? For Mr. Salabi? Okay, not hearing any. Mr. Arch, let's move this on to the next one, please.
Thank you. Our next witness would be Mr. Thomas Muller, our professional engineer.
Okay. Mr. Muller, welcome. Can you please provide your credentials to the board, please?
Yep, absolutely. Tom Muller, Dynamic Engineering Consultants. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey in good standing. I have my Bachelor's of Science and Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University. I've been with the firm for over 11 years. I have over 13 years of experience in the engineering field. I am a senior principal with Dynamic Engineering. I personally prepared the plans that are being presented tonight. I visited the site. I have presented to many boards throughout the state of New Jersey. This is my first opportunity here tonight, though. But I have been to many other of the surrounding towns, to Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Muller. We accept your credentials.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Muller, if you can just please take us through the site, what we're proposing, and if you can touch upon the relief that we're requesting.
Yep, absolutely. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, this is an aerial map exhibit. It's just a colorized aerial. It's identical to the aerial map that was submitted as part of the site plan package. I did pull it out and make it a 1-of-1 exhibit though, so I can mark it if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
Okay, so exhibit A2 is aerial map exhibit prepared by our office dated January 9th, 2023. As I mentioned, this is simply just a colorized aerial image, a satellite image showing the site and surrounding areas. The property in question is highlighted in yellow here. And then we have a 200-foot buffer around that site, just showing you the different properties that are immediately within the 200-foot vicinity of the site. Then we also have the zone lines shown in this this purplish color, which I'll touch on in a minute. Just quickly, some of the metrics on the site. We're here talking about block 78.10, lots 26 and 28. It's identified as 4650 Route 9 in the township of Howell. We have about 216 linear feet of frontage on Route 9. Route 9's a 4-lane divided highway, 2 lanes in each direction. We are on the southbound side of Route 9. Property size is about 4.6 acres in size. Historically, the site at one point was a farm. At some point in the 60s and 70s, it was redeveloped as the Blue Moon Hotel. As you can see on the exhibit, the Blue Moon Hotel is no longer there on site. It was demolished, to my knowledge, around 2015. So right now it's essentially a unmaintained site, broken asphalt, unmaintained lawn areas, a wooded area in the back of the site. I think the only evidence of the Blue Moon Hotel now is the freestanding sign that's on Route 9 along the frontage of the site. The site is located in the HD1 Highway Development Zone. The site is surrounded to the north with also the HD1 zone. We have a number of retail facilities to the north of our site. Beyond those retail, we have New Friendship Road. To the east of our site, we have Route 9. Beyond that, we also have the HD1 zone and retail uses. To the south, again, we also have the HD1 zone along with retail uses. This is the Wawa immediately to the south of our property. Then there's a cell phone field also to the south of us. And then to the west, we have the R3 zone. We have the Driftwood Drive cul-de-sac and subdivision immediately to our west. Just zooming out quickly, the municipal building is actually here on the northeast of the site, just to familiarize yourself a little bit more with where we are.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick
Yes.
correction. There's no blue in front of Moon. in the
No, it's
title of
just yes, Mr. Cantor, it's just the Moon Motel, if we
Correct.
remember. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that correction.
No problem.
Just, yeah, in terms of existing conditions, there's no wetlands on site. We did verify that with the NJDEP. And there's no environmental considerations on the site, which I'll touch on in a few minutes, but we did do an extensive environmental study on the site. There are no recognized contaminated areas or areas of concern. There were previously tanks and tanks that were removed from the site, and we also performed historic pesticide testing per the ordinance requirements, which came back clean, so we don't have a pesticide issue on the site. That's really it on existing conditions. I'm gonna hop over to proposed conditions, Mr. Arch, unless you'd like me to touch on anything else here.
No, absolutely. We can move on to what we're proposing.
Great.
And similarly, Tom, this is a colorized rendering that is the same as what we had previously provided, just pulled out as
Yeah,
a
I
single
apologize. This was not submitted 48 hours in advance, but this is simply just a colorized version of the identical site plan that was submitted. It includes the same zoning notes. It includes the same exact layout. All we did was colorize it and overlay the landscaping on this just to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So if it's acceptable, I'll be using this for the majority of the rest of my testimony.
Okay, one second, Mr. Muller. Sherry?
Yes.
So on this colorized rendering, it looks like maintaining some tree canopy to the rear of the property?
So that's actually an issue that I wanted them to discuss when Tom got to it, but I went out to the site after I sent my letter, and that buffer is very thin and covered in vines, and most of the larger mature trees are ash trees. And I think you're all familiar with the emerald ash borer that has killed all the ash trees. So I'm a little concerned about just keeping the buffer that's there. It might be better to change to what the ordinance requires with the full compliant buffer rather than save these existing trees.
Thank you, Sherry. Mr. Muller, you note that?
Yep, absolutely. I'm fully on board. I did have a chance to discuss with Ms. Sparrow about this, and I agree. The original consideration was to not touch that buffer whatsoever, which is what the ordinance actually requests as the first line of defense. So we're actually not touching it at all on this plan, but based on my discussions with Ms. Sparrow, we have no problem working with her to replant this rear area to her satisfaction. I'm just going to mark this quickly. It's this will be Exhibit A3. This is a site plan rendering prepared by our office dated January 9th, 2023. As I mentioned, this is just a colorized version of the site plan that we submitted as part of the application. North arrow is the same as the aerial exhibit that I just showed. North is immediately to the top of the page. Route 9 is on the right side of the page, which is the east side.
Can we just check and make sure we don't already have A1, 2, and 3? I think we would, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I made this one A3.
I'm just saying, don't we already have an A3 and all of the stuff sent to us? I don't know who could check that.
Eileen, is there an exhibit list?
Eileen?
Yeah, there is. If you look at it already before what we started tonight, it goes up to A16.
So we can do 17, 18, and 19, and we can correct
Right,
those.
so we'll start with, this would be 19, right? Previous one 18, right, and the first one 17. Good catch, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You know, Mr. Muller, this is what happens when you present on the fly, the same day.
Completely understood. We'll certainly clarify that on our future presentations.
Please continue.
Okay, so Exhibit A19 is colorized version of the site plan. As Mr. Arch mentioned, we're here requesting preliminary and final major site plan approval, as well as use variance approval. We did have an opportunity to review all the review letters that were initially submitted by the board professionals and the township professionals. We made a comprehensive resubmission to revise our plans, revise our reports. We resubmitted that back to the township in 2022, and we did receive updated review letters that Mr. Arch listed at the beginning of the hearing. So I am well familiar with those review letters. I did have a chance to discuss them all with the board professionals, and I'll do my best to wrap in a lot of the open comments and the requested testimony throughout my presentation here. So just for a high level version of what we are proposing here, as Mr. Arch mentioned, we have 6 total buildings. They're identified as buildings 1 through 6 on the site plan. Building 1 is to the east of the property. It's a 1-story building. It's 12,136 square feet in size. This includes the main office for the building, for the entire property as well. The office is only about 696 square feet in size, immediately in front of this building. Building 2 is in the middle of the site. It's a 2-story building. The footprint is 21,747 square feet for a total gross floor area of 43,494 square feet. Building 3 is immediately to the south of that, also on the interior of the site. It's 2 stories. It's 21,747 square feet in size from a footprint standpoint, which gives us a 43,494 square feet gross floor area. Building 4 is to the top of the page. It's a perimeter building on the north side of the site, 1 story. It's 12,983 square feet in size. Building 5 is to the west of the site in the rear of the site, 1 story, 8,695 square feet in size. And then finally, building 6 is this final southern perimeter building, which is 1 story, and it's 4,234 square feet in size. Just for a quick walk through the site, our only public frontage is on Route 9. So we are proposing a brand new driveway connecting to Route 9. It complies with the DOT geometry standards. We do have an application pending to the DOT. They have accepted this design. They're ready to issue their permit. They're essentially waiting for the Township Zoning Board here to approve the project, and then we expect the permit from the DOT to follow shortly after. But as vehicles drive into the site, there's a 30-foot wide driveway that enters into the site. Then customers are required to turn into the site and use one of the 10 parking spaces along the front of the site. As you make your way into the site, there's also 2 mechanical access gates that have a keypad system that all customers will get. If they're currently paid customers, they have a code that allows them to get into the gates immediately next to building 1. And then as you make your way around the site, all the drive aisles inside the site are 30 feet wide. That was done intentionally in coordination with the Township Fire Marshal. So we do have 30-foot drive aisles everywhere. It's all paved throughout the entirety of these buildings. And then, as I mentioned before, as you exit the site, there'll be another mechanical gate here at the south part of building 1, which just simply leads you back into the parking field. And that will also be where our 10 by 10 trash enclosure is. The site will have an ADA parking stall. The site will be ADA compliant. We have, just in terms of the zoning calculations, as I mentioned, the site is in the HD1 Highway Development 1 zone. We are requesting a self-storage use variance for the self-storage, and technically there's also another use variance required for the number of principal structures. As I mentioned, we have 6 total buildings here. The ordinance contemplates allowing retail uses to have multiple buildings if they serve one purpose, but the ordinance does not specifically call out self-storage to allow multiple buildings. So technically, we do require that use variance for the multiple buildings. Besides the use variances, the property actually and the layout actually complies with all the bulk standard requirements for the actual self-storage use. The minimum lot area is compliant. 80,000 square feet is required. We have 201,000 square feet here. The lot frontage, the front yard setback to Route 9, the rear yard setback, the side yard setback, the maximum building height, the maximum impervious coverage, all are compliant with this layout. So it's completely compliant in terms of those bulk standards. There is one variance associated with the refuse enclosure here. It's technically, you can consider it an accessory building. The ordinance requires it to be in the side or rear yard. However, we do have it here technically in the front yard because it's between the front property line and the front building. So we are requesting a variance for that accessory building for the trash enclosure. There's also a minor additional variance for a 14-foot high landscape wall, which is identified here in the northwestern portion of the site. You'll see in a few minutes with the architectural renderings, but this is essentially a continuation of buildings 4 to building 5. It's basically just an extension of a wall between those two buildings. Instead of dropping that down and just using a standard fence, we're just enclosing those two buildings just to provide that visual buffer from adjacent properties. But that is technically a variance because it's 14 feet in height, whereas the ordinance allows a maximum of 8 feet in height.
So is that for security reasons?
Exactly. It's for security, and just we're using that as an opportunity for a nice aesthetic wall there.
Where else do you?
When you see the architectural renderings of that side facade, you will absolutely understand the need for that wall.
Roger.
Yep. And then
Mr. Mullen?
Yep.
So, since you have handicap parking and, you do have some sort of enforcement that needs to be made, would you consider submitting an application to the new Howell Township Police Department under Title 39?
Mr. Archer, I'd have to defer to you on that one.
We can absolutely look into that. Elias, we have no issues with submitting to the township so that they can enforce the traffic code in terms of the parking spaces, correct? I think he's muted, but I can read lips and he said sure. So
yes, very good. Sorry about that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a
Thank
typical condition that this board generally requires with all applications.
I used to be a municipal prosecutor, so I agree. I want Title 39 jurisdiction there. Tom, if you can continue and maybe touch upon the other relief we're requesting.
Yep, absolutely. Just quickly going through parking, as I mentioned, we have 10 total parking spaces. The ordinance requires that we have 1 parking space per 300 square feet of office. 696 square feet of office is proposed. Therefore, we need 2.3 spaces for the office. The storage requirement is 1 parking space per 5,000 square feet. The total gross floor area of all the storage portions of the buildings are 124,340 square feet, which would require 24.8 parking spaces. Adding these two numbers together gives us 28 total parking spaces. As I mentioned, we only have 10 parking spaces. You'll hear from the traffic engineer that we have substantial industry data that supports this number of parking spaces. This is a very low intensity parking use. We typically see our customers come in, park in those parking stalls, and immediately go back to the rear of the site to access their units. So the turnover on these parking stalls is very high. There's a very limited amount of time that these cars are parked here. So it's my personal professional opinion that 10 is adequate, but you'll hear a little bit more about that from our traffic engineer in a few minutes.
Mr. Muller, where are the cars parked when they're unloading and loading their storage lockers?
They would be parked in the 30-foot aisle immediately adjacent to the building. So that is one of the reasons why we have those 30-foot aisles. It gives more than enough space for another car to bypass those cars that are temporarily stored there to access the spaces.
Cool, thank you.
The parking is 9 feet wide by 19 feet long, which complies with ordinance requirements. All the drive aisles are 30 feet wide, which complies with ordinance. We have directional traffic signage and striping throughout the site. Site's been designed with clear sight triangles. In my opinion, this site is a very well designed site. It'll operate and it'll accommodate vehicles very safely and efficiently. The site's also been designed to accommodate the Township of Howell fire apparatus, as well as SU-30 box trucks, which is the largest vehicle that we would typically see on a self-storage use of this nature.
Okay.
In terms of, oh, sorry.
You're continuing, go ahead.
Yep, in terms of loading, the ordinance requires that we have 5 total spaces for a project of this size. We don't have any formal delineated parking stalls. However, we do essentially give those loading stalls and loading areas to the customers by allowing them to store and stage temporarily within that drive aisle. So while we don't have any striped loading areas, we do technically comply with the ordinance by providing much more than the 5 loading stalls that are required.
And that would accommodate, like, let's say someone was coming here with like a moving truck. That would be, I know that you have a traffic engineer, so I'm just gonna pose the question to you initially, and then you can punt it if you need to. But I would say the volume of cars you anticipate on the site, in the site, do you anticipate the 30-foot width of the aisle and the length of those aisles, you would be able to accommodate like a moving van, a moving truck, for however long it takes to unload without impeding anything else?
Yes, absolutely. The site will be restricted to SU-30 box trucks, which is your standard moving vehicle. We do not accept tractor trailers on the site, but in the event we do get the box trucks, the SU-30 box trucks, the drive aisles would be sufficient to allow that box truck to temporarily stage and allow other vehicles to pass as that truck is unloading.
Thank you.
Would that include fire trucks getting past a moving truck?
Yes, we had the opportunity to talk to the township fire official on a number of occasions. He's very happy with this layout. The 30-foot drive aisles were something he requested. We actually, revised the plan to make sure we comply with that. So yes, it would satisfy the fire truck maneuvering as well.
Are we gonna be getting into any more fire suppression? Like they have fire hydrants, relocation of fire hydrants, they're adding a fire hydrant.
Yes, we are providing 2 fire hydrants for this site. We're also providing fire suppression for all of the buildings, as Mr. Bensavanga will mention, the architect. But on site, we're proposing a fire hydrant immediately in front of the site, right at the driveway per the township fire official's request. And then another fire hydrant right next to building 3 on the east side, in this area, right at the southeast portion of the site. So yes, we do have 2 new fire hydrants going in.
And the other recommendations by the fire bureau, the lock boxes, Knox, what's it called?
Knox box.
Knox box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Knox box.
Yeah, we'll comply with that. We'll have Knox boxes on site to his satisfaction.
Mr. Muller, do you have anything else to offer? Or
Yeah,
you can
Yeah, I'm
have you
just gonna touch
concluded?
quickly.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering when you finish your testimony here.
Yep, I could just wrap up quickly with grading and drainage and then
And then
yeah,
we'll go to
just-
Mr. Conliffe, and then we'll go to Ms. Beam, and then we'll go to the board members.
perfect.
Lighting too, right? You're gonna talk about lighting?
Yep, I'll touch on lighting quickly as well.
Okay.
I'll go quickly.
And maybe signage too, real quick, Tom, just because we have a variance for that.
Yep. I know grading and stormwater management is a very important topic here with the board. Just to keep this simple, we are completely complying with the new green infrastructure March 2021 NJDEP rule. We are also complying with the township ordinance as well as county standards and soil erosion standards. I've had an opportunity to work with Mr. Cunliffe on this project in great detail. I believe we're on the same page with his open comments. We have no problem addressing his open comments. But just quickly to summarize our development, we do have pervious pavement throughout the site, which is this beige color. They're pervious pavers. So it'll look like pavers on the surface with, however, they have gaps in them. So they allow stormwater runoff to drain through them. Below that, we have underground infiltration basins. We did a substantial number of soil tests on site to confirm groundwater levels as well as permeability rates. Ultimately, all the stormwater under existing additions drains to the southwest. It all funnels down towards that Wawa property and it funnels to the southwest of the site. We're maintaining that drainage and we're outfalling all of our stormwater in that same location. We're not proposing any new connections to the DOT road or connecting to any adjacent properties.
Charlie, that works for you?
Yeah, there's a couple outstanding comments in my letter that I've spoken with Mr. Muller about. Obviously, he'll have to provide the documentation to show that those items are satisfactorily addressed. If this goes to another meeting, I would ask that those be addressed prior to us reconvening if this does not get to a vote tonight. One of the main comments I had in general, obviously, the new stormwater management rules are pushing porous pavement as a means for stormwater management. This isn't your typical porous pavement section with, asphalt pavement course and then, clean stone underneath it, as Mr. Mueller alluded to. It's a interlocking pavement system with void space where the runoff will flow through. And then it's actually, Mr. Miller, you can elaborate on this, an underground infiltration tank system underneath each pavement section, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So you're not relying entirely on, 40% void space in between clean stone underneath a pavement system that is not easily inspected as far as operation and maintenance. It's something with actual void space and some structure. Mr. Mueller, there's inlets provided incrementally along the pavement section as well in, an event that the applicant did not follow through with their maintenance responsibilities in an emergency condition where that runoff would still get directed to that underground infiltration system, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. As far as any downstream impacts, you alluded to the site currently drains in a southwesterly direction to the southwest corner of the site. Have you looked at where that runoff then flows once it leaves the site and any impact to adjacent properties? Can you talk about that a little bit for the boards?
Yes, we did an analysis, a 2,000-foot downstream analysis based on the topographic information that we have. It shows that drainage eventually makes its way to the southwest and then eventually to the Sweet Gum Brook. To my knowledge, it does not negatively impact any adjacent properties. We're meeting the stormwater requirements from the state as well as the township ordinance. So we're actually reducing the amount of stormwater from a peak runoff rate requirement as well as a volume requirement. So we're actually reducing the amount of water that's going in that direction. But we did analyze that and we don't anticipate any negative impacts to downstream properties.
So the one comment that I will make on that, Mr. Say, is obviously any analysis and report is based on the information that's provided with it. The analysis that Mr. Mueller and the exhibit that he presented to the board is based off of Monmouth County 2-foot contour data, which a lot of that is flown from LiDAR. There is some, adjacent residential development that has occurred, over the last 15 years. Some of that was some stormwater management basins for Seminole Court to the west. Doesn't necessarily appear like it's shown in that exhibit. Obviously on the ground survey of that area showing that there is a dedicated swale that this bypasses and doesn't impact adjacent residential properties is a lot more concrete, evidence for the board's perspective than just relying on, like I said, topography that was obtained by a plane flying thousands of feet above the air. So I would implore the applicant, if they do come back for another meeting, that would be something that would be beneficial, for the board's consideration of the application. We have had other developments that have come through the years adjacent to existing residential development where we hear everything, we're meeting our rate reductions off site, but then we drain it to someone else's stormwater collection system, conveyance system, and there have been issues, after the fact. So we just want to make sure that the board, neighboring properties, and the applicant is covered on that front.
Thank you, Mr. Conliffe. Mr. Mola?
Yeah, just to second that, I agree. We can go out and get additional topography and review that with Mr. Conliffe and confirm that there's no impacts to downstream properties.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mueller, I'm sure the board members are going to have some questions for you.
Yep.
Okay. Jen, we're moving on to lighting, or Charlie, do you have anything else?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, so I'll try to quickly touch on. So there's a sign variance. I think they're proposing a total of 11 architectural signs throughout the site. So that's something Mr. Mueller is going to have to talk about. I don't know is that something, Tom, the architect's planning on spending time on?
Yeah, I'll quickly touch on it in terms of site layout. We have one monument sign along the front of the site, immediately in front of our frontage on Route 9. It's shown in blue on this exhibit. It's a monument sign. It's completely compliant with the ordinance requirements in terms of size and location. It's only 4 feet wide, 10 feet high. It's 20-foot setback to the right of way, so it's completely compliant with the ordinance. Where the variances come in are more related to the building mounted signage. We only have one true identity sign, which would be mounted on the front of the building, immediately in front of Route 9 here. We're allowed to have 324 square feet. We only have 58 square feet. So we're substantially smaller than what's allowed by the ordinance. The minimum clearance is also met. The maximum projection off the wall is also met. Where the variance comes in then is the directional signage. We have a number of loading signs shown on the building. They're very subtle loading signs. They're only 3 square feet in size. And then we also have a leasing sign immediately above the office entrance, which is also 3 square feet in size. The ordinance only allows a retail business to have 2 total signs for an entire property. So conservatively assuming that those directional loading and leasing signs are truly site identification signs, then yes, we would require a variance. 2 is required, and we have a total of 11 if you include the monument sign and the building mounted sign. So there is a variance. And you'll see the signs on the architectural plan in a few seconds.
And Tom, is it fair to say that those signs that you're identifying as directional signs, therefore navigating the site for customers navigating the site for safety of circulation around the site?
Yes, absolutely.
Dan?
I'm fine with the sign package, to be honest. I mean, you know, you don't want people meandering through. It's really more for safe circulation. The sign on Route 9 is compliant. The sign on the building is perfectly acceptable. So it looks like a lot, but in reality, it's more the majority of our directional. So I don't have a problem with it.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Tom, if you can just touch upon lighting and security, please, real quick.
Yep, absolutely. Lighting, very uniform lighting design. All the lights are LED, which is obviously the modern, efficient light that we like to use on all of our projects. The maximum light height requirement by ordinance is 24 feet. We're only at 8.5 feet for certain lights, which are mounted on the building, and then 15 feet for our tallest light. So we're 9 feet below what the ordinance allows. We're trying to keep those lights as low as possible. We don't need to light this site up like a normal retail site or car dealership or some sort of high intensity use. We're keeping it very dim and essentially the minimum to allow for safe maneuvering through the site at all operating hours. We have most of our lights are mounted on the building. We have no lights on the perimeter of the buildings. They're all focused inward on the interior drive aisles. We have 2 area lights along the front of the site where the parking area is. These are not floodlights. They're forced to be focused downward. You don't see the light filament or the light fixture rather at all. It's just all downward focused. We have no spillover to any adjacent properties, especially to the west where the residents are. There is a slight design waiver required here. The maximum average light level is intended to be 0.5 foot candles. However, we're proposing 3 foot candles average over the course of this entire site. The 0.5 foot candle average is usually what we try to do as a minimum light requirement to provide safe access on a site like this. So when we use that as a minimum, naturally you have some maximums that go a little bit higher than 0.5. So as you average them out, we're at about 3 foot candles for this site. But as I mentioned, a very modest lighting design, very well distributed. So I don't anticipate any significant issues with the lighting design.
Mr. Chair, if I could just jump in on that, and obviously this is something that's come up on every rules committee meeting we've had for the last 4 years about revising the light intensity requirement to reflect current LED lighting standards. So this is not something that's new for the board to grant. I do want to note the applicant did revise the plans to indicate maximum 3000 Kelvin light temperature, especially given the proximity to adjacent residential uses. Also, they provided house side shields for all pole mounted lighting that abuts adjacent properties. You heard Mr. Mueller talk about the lighting for the buildings around the rear and perimeter. There's nothing on the the northwest or southerly facades as far as lighting for those buildings. Everything is internally facing towards building number 2 and 3 in this rendering. I just want to have Mr. Mueller clarify. So for building 2 and 3, there will be building mounted lighting. Is that all below the height of buildings 4, 5, and 6 relative?
Yeah.
Like those will be outward facing for those buildings, obviously. I just want to make sure that's downward facing. And then obviously if it can be coordinated so they're at a height that's lower than those 4, 5, and 6, you know, that also provides some added buffer as far as, you know, an actual hard, you know, barrier to restrict light from going to the residences to the west and south.
Yes, yeah, to my knowledge, they're below the height of those perimeter buildings. I'm gonna ask the architect just to confirm that when he does his presentation, but yes, I believe all those lights are lower than the height of those buildings, so that you're not gonna see any lights from those adjacent properties.
So along those same lines, and to kind of dove back into a question that was earlier asked on that other self-storage facility, we pulled the resolution for that, Mr. Chair. Their general hours for visitors to the site, you know, tenants to the individual units were 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. There wasn't any restriction on days of the week on that. So what I would say is, you know, applicant provided similar testimony for this use. I would just say any lighting would have to go off within, you know, 30 minutes after 10 p.m. Other than for security purposes, which can be dimmed to an appropriate level. Some sort of language in the resolution and a note on the plan should cover us on that end. Is that something Mr. Arch, the applicant, can agree to?
I'm seeing Eli shake his head. Yes, I believe that we can agree to that.
Yes. Okay. Other things that I have, and I'll leave the landscaping and the architectural for Jen to talk about. Sidewalks. Obviously, this is the Route 9 corridor. Our ordinance requires sidewalks along Route 9. I imagine Jen's going to say that they absolutely need to provide that, subject to DOT.
Absolutely.
As far as sidewalk from the public to the facility, I'll leave that up to the board's discretion. I don't know how pedestrian friendly this type of use is for visitors. I think it's mostly going to be, you know, passenger vehicles up to box trucks that visit the site. So I wouldn't take exception to the board granting that relief. And I'm trying to see if I got any other. Mr. Mueller. So it's hard to see in this rendering, but there is a 10-foot existing right of way along the northerly property line.
Yes.
Can you provide testimony on that, what the purpose of that was, and that's going to be abandoned with the use? It doesn't impact access for any adjacent properties, correct?
Correct. It serves lot 26 and lot 28. It was when lot 28 in the rear was basically an isolated lot. So it was just a 10-foot right of way to allow the property owners to access that. It'll be extinguished. The site will be consolidated as well. So it's essentially going to go away after this development.
Okay. And then kind of on the lines of emergency access. So you talked about addressing the fire official's concern. He had a comment about looping the water through the site, but I understand you indicated that all the buildings are going to be sprinklered. So I would just say, you know, that has to be addressed to the satisfaction of the fire official. We talked about the Knox boxes. I see you show in the rendering fire lanes. I would just defer getting the final blessing from the fire official for whether or not he requires any additional striping or signage throughout the balance of the site behind the gated access. Regarding utilities, if you want to just touch on that, Mr. Mueller, where you are with any sanitary and water for the site and where you are with outside approvals for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's public sewer to the rear of the site. It actually wraps around the northern portion of our property, and then it actually goes to the north to that retail use. That is a public sewer. So what we are doing is we're connecting our sewer to that at the northern property line. We're not connecting it to the rear near the residences. We're connecting that to the north. We are in the process of obtaining approval from the sewer authority on that. We also have public water, which we did make application to the local water utility for approval. We will obtain that, but we are still in the process of that. And then gas and electric are also coming right off of Route 9. and service applications can be made by the applicant when they're ready to make that connection. But we do have all public sewer, public water, no septic proposed here, and applications are pending.
So, and then the two last things I really have from Mr. Mueller, a lot of them I'll touch on with the other professionals, are it's not shown in this plan because there's no grading depicted, but can you provide some testimony regarding loading to buildings number 2 and 3, specifically that central driveway aisle between those two buildings? The grading plans show some pretty steep grading up to a 2nd story at grade loading area. What's the purpose of that? It's a lot of grade change internal to the site. Is there any visual impact to the neighboring properties? How does that function?
Yep, absolutely. So the site is graded in the middle of building 2 and 3 here to basically ramp up to the center of each building. So we have a grade change that goes from the finished floor elevation in the center of this intersection between buildings 2 and 3, and it grades up to match the finished floor of the 2nd story of buildings 2 and 3. And then it ramps back down to the rear of the site to get down to the elevation of building 5 and the first floors of building 2 and 3. So it's a modest ramp. I agree it's slightly steeper than the grading design for the rest of the site, but it's more than adequate for a vehicle to drive up this graded area and be able to stage at the top of that plateau and access the 2nd story. The reason we did that is just to provide access to that 2nd story for vehicles to drive up to that portion without the necessity of having them use an elevator. So it eliminates the requirement for us to have an elevator here. There'll be no visual impacts. It's lower than the height of building 5. So adjacent properties to the west won't see this. It's all completely interior to the site. It's very modest, and it's not something that will be obvious to people that are using this site in terms of visual impacts.
So, and I think that's a question that will probably need to be touched on by the architect for this application. So just to give the board, and Mr. Miller, if I could just share my screen real quick, I just want to give the board.
Hey, Charlie.
Yep.
You know what I'm thinking?
I mean, to me, it's
skateboards, great opportunity. What a ramp, huh?
Well, what I will say is the site is all gated, restricted to, tenants of the spaces. My main concern is, that building to the west and to the south and to the north, what's the roof line elevation of those buildings in relation to the pavement grade for that loading area? Once you put in an SU-30 box truck on the top of that loading area, where are the backup lights? What's the sound being emanated? What kind of impact does that have to the neighboring properties? To me, it certainly seems like it's a creative way to eliminate the need for an elevator.
I think we need elevators, Charlie.
I agree as well. Obviously, as you know, cost is not a barrier or something that the board considers in terms of use variance or any land use application. So I would implore the applicant to discuss that internally before we come to some sort of resolution on this application.
Absolutely. That also has an impact on stormwater management, etc.
Obviously, reducing the slopes of any pavement area is going to slow down the waters to some extent to where it goes and gets
the velocity. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Mr. Muller, you making note of this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Muller? Security.
Site's fully enclosed with fencing, and the perimeter buildings naturally restrict anyone from driving within the site unless they're a customer or maintenance or part of the operation of the site. There's gates along the front of the site with Knox boxes, as I mentioned. That's really it on security. I'd be happy to dive in more on that, but that's really it on security.
Okay. Charlie, do we have any more questions for Mr. Muller from your perspective?
Not at the moment, but if something arises, I'll reserve the right to ask another question before we wrap up.
Excellent. Jen?
I just have a couple things, and I'm going to defer this one to Shari. which is there is a waiver that the applicant has requested of providing landscaping between the parking area and the buildings. I will say that the perimeter, they've agreed to work with Shari on landscaping. And the front of the building has provided landscaping between the parking and the building. It's really the interior of the site, you know, and as you guys can imagine, and I'm sure the architect will provide the details of this, but you know, it's like it's garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door. So there's really not a lot of opportunity to provide something between like the loading area. It's not really technically parking and those buildings. I will say they've notched out the corners of each of these buildings on the interior to put some landscaping, and you know, I would say whatever Shari wants in those little notch outs is something the applicant should agree to. I don't really take exception to the waiver because it's all interior to the site. You're not going to see it, but I would defer to Shari on whether she thinks that something could work there. And then the other thing goes back to the sidewalk. You know, we require all applicants to provide sidewalk on Route 9. Route 9 is a major New Jersey transit bus route. There are people walking now, whether there's sidewalk or not. Not providing sidewalk is just creating a dangerous condition that we'd like to correct. So I would submit to the board that this applicant at this location should be putting the sidewalk along the Route 9 frontage. And as we've seen in every other application, the DOT typically doesn't take exception so long as it's 4 foot wide and concrete. So I think that the board should require that. I agree with Charlie. This is not a walkable type use. So for them to add pavement, to put a sidewalk from Route 9 into the site, I think is unnecessary, but I would leave it up to the board. And lastly, as part of the streetscape design principles in the ordinance, they require things like benches, tables, bike racks, something. So I would ask, could you put a bike rack? I don't know that anyone's going to use it, but in the event that someone may, I think it's not the worst idea to just have a bike rack that would comply with that section of the ordinance, and therefore a waiver would not be required. Is that something you guys could comply with?
I'm going to defer to Elias. I believe that we can comply. I know that the reason we didn't show the sidewalks is because I believe the DOT did not require that in their review.
They don't ever.
Right.
We always do, and they never say no. So
I just to explain to maybe the new members of the board that we're not actively seeking to avoid that. It's just something that DOT did not request. And so I'll defer to Mr. Salebi as to whether we can agree with those conditions.
Yeah, we are okay providing sidewalks and the bike rack.
Perfect.
Excellent.
I have a couple comments on the architecture, but I assume the architect is going to present. I do want the board to be aware prior to any testimony from the architect, his office has worked very hard with my office to come up with a design that I think kind of meets the intent of what they need, and also takes into consideration our design requirements. They do need relief, but I do want the board to know they haven't just ignored me. We've had multiple Zoom meetings going over architectural design. So I just want the board to be aware that they've been working very hard with my office prior to coming before you with this design. And I think it's a really good design. So I just want to put that out there before they present that.
Thank you, Jen.
That's all I have.
Great.
Yep.
All right. So fellow board members, for Mr. Muller, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Rebel.
I don't have anything further.
Okay. Mr. Hughes.
I don't really have anything. I'm a little unclear on this new ramp idea. Maybe can we quickly just go over that once again, please? Between the two buildings.
It might be, and it also might be helpful when we get to the architect. There might be some more visual indications that might be helpful with that, but we can certainly talk about that more.
No, I think actually visual will be good when the architect comes, so I'll be fine with that. I just want to get a better idea of what we're looking at. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Orozco.
Yes, about the ramp, the access is for customers that they are going to the buildings, but what happened is, crazy teenagers, they are going to enter and play inside. Is any type of alarms, something like that?
Well, that's certainly a concern, Mr. Orozco, and that's kind of, I agree with you. So that's why we're asking the applicant, we prefer not having the ramp and we prefer having the elevator, you know.
Is there, quickly, to piggyback on Mr. Orozco, is there any video surveillance intended
I was
here?
gonna ask that. Yeah.
I believe there is, Elias, I believe there's AI video
Yes.
surveillance as part of the
Yes, it's
presentation.
24/7. We have even face recognition, and I know there's a concern, but every entrance has a keypad and only customers can get in and get out after hours specifically, and even during normal operating hours, so.
Okay, and that video, I guess that records and is monitored by somebody?
I mean, it's not lively monitored, but it sends signals after hours. So basically, in case for whatever reason somebody jumps off the fence or stays on the facility and they walk, then it sends a signal to the manager that they can review it the next morning. And repeated offenders, obviously, we would terminate the leases if that happens more than once.
Okay. Mr. Cantor.
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Shade Tree Committee, I have to ask, what is the feasibility of limiting or eliminating Building 5 in favor of more landscaping and a buffer?
Good question.
From an engineering perspective and a zoning perspective, we do comply with the buffer requirement to the rear of the site. 50 feet is required. We are meeting that. And 50 feet, in that 50 feet, we're going to be completely replanting that area. So we're not trying to salvage a lot of those trees. They're all mostly ash trees, as Ms. Sparrow mentioned, which we're trying to eliminate in New Jersey just in general. And we're also removing them because they're overgrown with vines. So the 50-foot requirement is more than enough to allow us to substantially plant that, in my opinion. And we're also completely compliant with the lot coverage requirement. So I would have to defer to Mr. Arch and Mr. Slaby on the economics and requirements for that building. But from an engineering and zoning standpoint, we think it's sufficient.
Quite frankly, and obviously I'm not an engineer and I'm not an architect, but I think by eliminating that building, you might open up more issues with the interior then becoming an issue for residences more so than just having that building there. So I think it actually aids with the buffer to have that Building 5 there.
So, and Mr. Say, just to add some clarity to, Mr. Mueller is not incorrect in the statement that he made, right? They don't need relief from the buffer requirement. They don't need relief from impervious coverage, but they're very virtually right at the impervious coverage limit that's permitted in the zone. 70% is permitted. Now, you know, to Mr. Cantor's point, you know, there's more than one way to skin the cat to add additional buffering in there. You know, you could eliminate building number 5. You could also reduce the square footage of some of these buildings interior to the site and pull things, you know, more westerly to create more wooded buffer. So, you know, to that point, this is a use variance. You know, they are right at the limit of what is permitted in the zone as terms of bulk requirements. So, you know, obviously, you know, that's something for the board to weigh in their consideration of the.
We can trim it down a little bit, in other words. Yep.
One of the things too that just if I could, one of the things too, we haven't gotten to the architecturals yet, but you know, a bird's eye view like this, I want you to just stress again and remember these are single-story and two-story structures. These aren't tall, imposing structures that are going to be looking down over top of the residences. So perhaps the board will get a better sense of that with the architectural. But I just want to remind you of that as we're looking at this flat image.
And Mr. Say, before we go on, and you know, it's been talked about, and I just want to, I'm sharing my screen. This is sheet number 5. I hope everyone can see it, of the applicant's latest site plan submission to the board. This is what we were discussing regarding the ramping of this internal area. So, you know, at the west end of this drive aisle, you're at elevation 112. At the east end, you're at 114. At the center where the loading is, it's at 124. So it's 12 feet of grade difference. You know, your first floor for this building at the back here is at a 111.39. You know, we'll wait to hear testimony from the architect on the height of this building in relation to this, but that was the discussion and the concern. I think from a safety perspective, you heard about gated access only, video security and things like that. I think that potentially addresses that concern, maybe from residential and people. It's not a residential subdivision where it's uncontrolled and, you know, kids are going to be running in all over the place kind of things. More so my comments were in lines to impact of vehicles, whether they can be seen to adjacent properties, noise and things of that nature. So I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see everyone.
Thank you, Charlie. Mr. Cantor, you good?
Thank you.
Mr. Ryan,
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Borello, where are you?
I'm
How are
good.
you, sir?
Good.
You're good?
Yeah, and I'm good.
Okay. And then Mr. Mertens.
Okay, well, we're getting into the landscaping. Where are we going to have this in the testimony? I have a couple questions for Sherry and maybe for the engineer. So is this a good time to, you know?
Well, if you have a question for the engineer, it's a good time.
Okay. Could we get the landscape plan back with the color rendering? Because that would probably be easier for me to.
Yep. Let's see here. Okay, so I have exhibit A19 back.
Okay, that's what I need. Okay. Now, the southwest corner, you don't have the wall connecting the buildings like you do in the northwestern corner, where you have that 14 wood. So that's going to be actually ground level, that opening there. Yeah, right there.
Yep, there'll be a standard 4-foot high fence through that area. The reason for that is because we have the stormwater outfall in that area, and we can't build a wall over that.
Okay, well, my question is on the north and south side of this building, it looks like you have an area that's, I would say, looks like it's going to be grass. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, because of the issue with the, I think with the drainage and the stormwater issue, a lot of times I think we should maybe think about, if we're going to have grass there, to have irrigation for it, because if it's not getting irrigated, it's going to burn up and you're basically going to have the water just running right over it. So I think that's going to be very important to me, to make sure that grass is suitable for drainage, because it will certainly help any of the water coming out of that south side especially. Is that something that you would be able to accommodate?
Yes, we could provide an irrigation system for that area.
Okay, so it's not a matter of it being sodded or seeded. I just want to make sure, because I can see a lot of properties on Route 9 where there's no irrigation and it's basically brown dirt, and that would certainly help when you have that opening there. And the northwest corner, you do have a little cubby hole. I know we're going to, do some work on that buffer in the back. There's a cul-de-sac, I believe, on the western side. Is that right, with those adjacent residentials?
Yeah, it's just off the viewport on
Okay.
the left side of the exhibit.
Yeah, I just noticed that you have a cut in the screening. Now, this is right now existing greenery that Sherry says we're going to probably have to address because of the ash trees and some of the undesirable growth back there. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. My concern is just making sure that, and I feel comfortable with Sherry taking care of this, but I think that's the most important part of this whole site, is having that area well buffered before we go to, we'll address that at the final approval, but final site plan. But that's going to be my main concern. And I agreed with Glenn to a point with the eliminating building 5, but in a way I see that keeping the lighting inside the site as opposed to having that open. So I think I don't have a problem with keeping that western building, but you could shrink it, the whole site, but I think that's a good screening as far as I'm concerned. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Martins. Okay. Can we have the screen back?
Is that it for all the board members, Mr. Chair?
That's it for all the board members, sir. We got through the engineering part.
I'm going to move on next to Justin Taylor. He's our traffic engineer. I'm going to ask him to
Put his
jump on-
credentials on the record, please.
Put his credentials on the record. Yep.
Might this be a good opportunity for a brief break?
Would you like to take 10?
5 would be good.
Yeah, 5 would
Fine.
be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly no
Eileen?
objection here.
The board will now take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:57 PM.
Thank you,
Call,
Eileen.
Glenn.
Mr. Arch.
Apologies. I'm back.
Okay, so now we were going to your,
We were going to Justin Taylor. He's our traffic engineer.
Justin Taylor. Mr. Taylor, please put your credentials on the record.
Surely. I hold a bachelor's in engineering from the University of Delaware. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as several other states. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I'm practicing traffic planning for over 20 years now. I've testified at hundreds of boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including this board, although it's been several years.
We accept your credentials, sir.
Thank you very much.
Justin, if you can take a moment, you've obviously reviewed the site, you've reviewed the traffic implications. If you can please give us the benefit of your analysis for the board.
Sure. And what I'd like to do is share A19 again, because I think that's probably the most relevant exhibit that we need. So let's see. So let me know when that's available.
It's available.
It is.
Excellent. So my responsibility as part of this project was to review the traffic impact, as well as work hand in hand with the civil engineer designing for safe and efficient circulation within the site, as well as to and from the site. As Mr. Muller mentioned, we are located along the southbound side of Route 9, just south of New Friendship Road. Route 9, as everyone is aware, is under the jurisdiction of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. Provides 2 lanes in the southbound direction in the vicinity of the site, with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. As part of the project, what we did is review not only what's proposed, but the existing conditions that are out there as well. As was previously testified to, the site was the location of the Moon Motel, which has been demolished, but from my standpoint, the access or the curb cut is still located there. There's one large, wide open curb cut, a little over 60 feet wide, along Route 9. So as part of the project, what we were looking to do was to modernize that driveway, bring it into conformance with current NJDOT standards, and provide more channelization for the right turn in and the right turn out maneuvers that would be coming to and from the site. Now, because we are accessing Route 9, the driveway is under the jurisdiction of the New Jersey Department of Transportation. We have submitted to NJDOT. We actually have received draft permits from them for the driveway that you see before you tonight. The one minor thing that needs to be finalized to just fully execute the permit is, should this board act favorably and the lots be consolidated, DOT needs record of the fact that there will be a new lot made out of the 2 that are out there. But from a geometric perspective, they have fully approved the driveway and the development as you see it here before you. What we did is, as part of the project, is work hand in hand with Mr. Muller and his team to design the layout of the site. Now, he's given you some brief testimony on the access aisles, the parking, and how it kind of operates. I want to delve a little deeper into that just to second his opinion that it does provide for safe and efficient access through the site. 30 feet through the access aisles is more than sufficient to accommodate loading on both sides of the driveway, as well as a center area for vehicles to pass them as they navigate through the site to their respective storage facility, storage units. This layout, as Mr. Muller mentioned, really doesn't require a typical loading zone. Again, because with the low frequency of customers coming to and from the site, you end up with the ability to park the trucks and the passenger vehicles along the face of the building and load and unload directly to the units. So the utilization of the parking aisles will not impede circulation throughout the site for other vehicles, and it'll really allow that the customers to be able to directly access the units as they need. We also took a look and worked with them on designing the parking. As Mr. Muller mentioned, we are providing parking spaces that meet your ordinance requirement of 9 feet by 19 feet. We are proposing 10 spaces, and the ordinance requirement with a breakdown of both office and storage spaces is a requirement of 28. But again, that doesn't take into account the ability for most customers to be able to park along the face of the building. And so there aren't really parking spaces necessary or required for the vast majority of the units. So what we did was take a hard look at the second story units, the units that aren't able to park in front of their unit, to make sure that we had enough parking. Once you break down the second story parking, you're looking at about 43,000 square feet. When looking at the ordinance requirement, this would be a requirement of 9 spaces to accommodate that 43,000 square feet. And we are providing 10. So it's my opinion that the parking that's provided out front will be more than sufficient to accommodate the demand of the employees that are working at the facility and the customers that may be accessing the second story units that can't park directly in front of the unit. And I think the board can feel comfortable that the parking that we're providing will be adequate to support the demand of the project. And the final piece that we worked on with this was taking a look at the traffic impact of the project. Now, when we generate traffic for uses such as this along a state highway, we use rates as published by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. And based upon their data, a facility of this size would generate between 10 and 20 cars during the busiest hours. So we're talking about a car every 4 to 5 minutes during the busiest times, and throughout the day, much lower than that. This number falls well below the threshold that both the NJDOT and the Institute of Transportation Engineers have set of a threshold of 100 new peak hour trips as being significant. We're talking about 10 to 20% of what either one of those agencies would consider in need of study or generating some sort of significant impact to the surrounding roadway network. So it's my opinion that the traffic associated with it is not going to have any detrimental impact to the surrounding roadway network. Now, it should be noted that this is a use variance. There are multiple other uses that are permitted within this zone that would generate far more traffic than the use that's actually proposed. We could look at a fast food restaurant or an office building or a shopping center. All could go in here as a permitted use. And any one of these generates 80 or 90% more traffic than what the self-storage use in itself generates. So again, I think from a use variance perspective, there isn't any detrimental impact from the traffic associated with the granting of the use variance for the proposal. Now, within the engineer's letters, there was a question about trip generation utilizing the number of units. The NJDOT doesn't provide data as using the number of units as an independent variable. However, the Institute of Transportation Engineers does. They have data published within their most recent trip generation manual, the 11th edition, using the number of units as the independent variable. If we look to a site such as this, which has about 1,000 units, a little bit under that, the ITE would project for peak hour trips between 6 and 15 peak hour vehicles, or between 12 and 30 peak hour trips for the site. So again, that number falls well below the threshold of both the ITE and the NJDOT. So based upon all of that, it's my conclusion that there will be no detrimental impact to the surrounding roadway network with the granting of the requested use variance. The type of use that we're proposing here is not a significant traffic generator. The NJDOT has reviewed the project as proposed and the driveway layout as proposed and has approved it in its current state. And I believe that the layout of the site provides for good circulation throughout the entire site and provides good access for the tenants to their various units throughout the site. So in conclusion, as I said, I think that this is a good project. It's been well thought out from a traffic perspective, and I don't see any detriment in granting the use variance.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. Taylor is available for any board questions.
Charlie, Jen, anything from Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I just I want to clarify. So the applicant's traffic report, and this came up on the last one, IT doesn't actually have a specific use for self-storage. They classify it as quote unquote mini warehouse. And I just want to clarify for the board that that is not traditional warehousing. It's just what's their term for self-storage. So this isn't a warehouse facility. These are small individual units. I just would ask that if the board does rule favorably on this application, we heard representations on the size of vehicles from, passenger vehicles up to SU30, nothing larger than that. So no tractor trailers. There's going to be a restriction as a condition of the approval. Regarding Fire Bureau access, obviously we heard their testimony about them, meeting with the fire official. I would just ask, obviously relying on that 30-foot aisle in the interior of the site for, albeit temporary parking. I think a condition of the approval would be that all those buildings have to be fire sprinklered. I think that's obvious. I think that's actually also probably going to be a requirement per building code, but I think that also alleviates potential concern with emergency access to the rear, in the event of a fire. If there are two vehicles parked on either side, you have the fire sprinkler in the building, and then also you still have the ability to maintain access for a fire truck, I think is a good thing. I do want to note, Mr. Taylor made mention of the second story not counting into the parking requirement because it doesn't have any at-grade access. I just want to make note for the board that parking requirement doesn't take into consideration, first story, second story office still generates a parking requirement regardless of whether or not it has an access way at grade. So there is still a parking requirement with that use, regardless of whether or not the second story self-storage has a roll-up door that can be accessed. So having said that, I don't necessarily disagree. We've heard similar applications with self-storage that don't necessarily meet the parking requirement when it's broken out per the use that's listed in our ordinance. A lot of these 30-foot circulation aisles use temporary parking, for those purposes. So I don't necessarily take issue with it. I just wanted to clarify that one item for the board. We talked about fire access with the Knox boxes. This came up, another item that came up when we had another application. There's not going to be any parking of vehicles in any of these individual units, right? No one's going to be doing a K-turn to pull in a car to any of these units, right? Just for storage of typical items, no vehicles, correct?
Correct. I believe we agreed to no vehicle storage.
Okay. And then Charlie, also hazardous materials. We talked about that.
We did talk about that, and that was something they had agreed to.
Okay.
That's really all I have from a traffic perspective. It's on Route 9. It sounds like the applicant has made considerable progress as far as their access and lot consolidation permit. And like Mr. Taylor indicated, they can't actually perfect the lot consolidation on DOT's end until the lots have been consolidated and approved from the board's perspective, from a land use perspective. So
Charlie?
Yep.
12 feet grade. I bring my vehicle up to the top. I don't set the parking brake. I leave it in neutral, and where I get out of the vehicle, where's the vehicle going?
That is definitely a valid concern along with the visual impacts. And I think
that's why I want it gone.
I don't disagree with your concern.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Arch, but it's more and more I'm trying to digest it. It doesn't make sense.
We certainly appreciate all the board's feedback, and it's an active process, the board hearing. So we appreciate
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions of Mr.
Any
Taylor?
board members? Let me see the board members. Mr. Ryan?
Are the tenants provided a direction on how to park in front of their units? Or is it just at their discretion, they can park wherever they'd like? Because then that kind of mixes with your 30-foot.
It's a great question.
Yep.
These are designed for people to pull up parallel with the building, not perpendicular to the building. And typically that's the way you would want to unload the truck anyway. You're gonna either have a ramp coming down, or you're going to be, a lift gate, or you're unloading out of the back of your SUV or your station wagon. And you would pull up parallel, and then that gives you direct access to your unit.
Okay, that's where the striping comes in then, right? We don't want them, accessing their unit and crossing over the striping, giving us clear definition of the aisle, in other words.
So, Mr. Saya, and just to elaborate on it, I think that's definitely a valid question and comment from Mr. Ryan. I think, I don't know that we necessarily want to encourage striped parking spaces along the back of the rear here, especially with all the roll-up door access ways and things like that. We don't want it to be a permanent parking area, or there to be any type of long-term, renting of the area in the back for parking of vehicles for outside tenants or anything like that. I think maybe some signage incrementally along the building indicating parallel parking only permitted, and maybe specifying like a maximum duration of parking might be something that would be prudent, just to alleviate that concern.
Yes, and then Title 39 weaved in with that. Absolutely.
Obviously. Yep.
Yes.
And I do want to note too, just again, with the low traffic generation, the number of people that are coming to the site, the chances of two individuals being right next to each other is extremely low. So at any given time that one person is unloading in one area, it's quite unlikely that the person who shares the next door or across the way one is going to be there at exactly the same time. So just so the board is aware of that. Got it. Okay, Mr. Orozco, any questions for the traffic engineer?
I'm thinking that it's next to the PNC Bank, right? The location is next to the PNC Bank.
Is that correct?
It's just north of the old Joe Young, or the Young's Appliance.
Okay, yes, because in that area, people are driving very fast. People coming from, the circle, they run about from 9 north going to 9 south. They go very fast. People going out from New Friendship, people going out from PNC Bank. It's going to be like an extra signs, like the buildings are going to be there just in case, to avoid any accident, or no?
To Taylor?
So this section of Route 9 provides a shoulder throughout the entire area, which is utilized for all the businesses up and down this corridor as a de facto acceleration and deceleration lane. Our driveway is going to be no different than the other ones through here. The other thing that I'll reiterate is the amount of traffic, what we're talking about. We're talking about a car coming in and out of here, or a truck coming in and out of here every 10 minutes or less. And that's the busiest time. For the most part, you're going to have a car or two an hour coming in and out of here. So I don't see any safety concern with the driveway as proposed. I would also note that we did design our driveway in full conformance with the standards of the NJDOT as required along a state highway.
And Mr. Taylor, is it safe to say that self-storage isn't necessarily an impulse destination, where you're not necessarily going to have vehicles that are, impulsively trying to turn in? It's usually a place that people plan to go to.
Absolutely. It's a destination land use. You don't, as you're driving down the highway, decide you're going to go rent a storage unit.
Thank you.
You're good, Mr. Roscoe?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Mr. Rebel?
Just a comment going back to the ramp again, since we're hitting on that from an engineering standpoint. It would have to be designed as a below grade wall, similar to a basement. It would have to be provided with damp proofing and perimeter drains and things of that nature. 12 feet's a considerable amount of soil pressure, so the wall will probably be a little thicker than some of the other walls that are just looking at wind pressure as well. So there's some design aspects. I don't know how far along the plan set is, or if it alludes to that, but it would definitely have to be damp-proofed, perimeter drain designed for the below-grade earth pressure.
Yeah.
Another wrinkle.
Mr. Rebel, thank you. Mr. Archer, I hope you're taking notes.
Absolutely. And again, that's all great things for our engineer to consider. That's well above my head in terms of technical know-how, though.
Okay. Mr. Cantor,
No questions.
Mr. Barillo.
Yes, not to belabor the point about the aisle spacing with cars or trucks, moving trucks and fire trucks, but are we considering not having any parking, loading or offloading on the corners? Only because I used to drive a fire truck, and if a truck or a car is parked at a corner of the building, and that fire truck's trying to make the turn off another aisle, it would be tough.
So there are no units directly on the corners. There are units at the end of the building, and there are units along the long sides of all the buildings. So
what's the setback, Mr. Taylor, from the end on the corners?
So you have a unit, you have a 10-foot radius, so you're approximately 10 feet off the corner to the first building, or for the first roll-up door on both sides. And there's the potential that you have a truck staged, or a passenger vehicle staged here. The fire truck has the ability to get around that. We did provide truck circulation, and fire truck circulation is part of the plans. And as Mr. Mueller mentioned, we have worked in depth with the fire official to make sure that they were on board with the layout and the design aisles that we have. So they didn't express any concern with this. I do understand your comment, but I think even if there is a passenger vehicle or truck parked there, there will be the ability for the fire truck to navigate around them.
Okay.
Mr. Barillo, you satisfied with that?
Yes.
Okay, you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Hughes?
Mr. Chair, I don't think so. I think it's more architecture. And again, with this ramp, a couple things came up in Mr. Taylor's testimony about the people that are maybe storing things on the second floor, parking out front. So I started digging deep into what happens if, where else can they load from besides the ramp? And I was looking at that, but I think it's more of an architecture thing. So I don't want to hang up his time on that.
All right, we'll pay attention to that then.
Thank
you. Then Mr. Mertens?
Let's see, because of the use of this site, I am satisfied with the traffic situation because we don't have any large trucks going out, and the minimum amount of cars going in and out, I do not feel is a major concern of mine. The other issues with the architectural that we'll address is more important to me right now.
All right, we'll get there then. Thank you, Mr. Mertens. Mr. Arch, seems like all the board members have opined on the traffic.
I guess now is a good time to go to our architect then, Mr. Rich Benzavenga.
Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Benzavenga, please put your credentials on the record.
Good evening. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Technology from New York Institute of Technology. I graduated in 1989. I've been licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 2004. My license and credentials are in good standing. I've testified before numerous boards in the state of New Jersey. My credentials have been accepted as an expert witness. I have not testified in front of Howell yet. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Your credentials, your licensing is all current and
Yes,
in good standing?
It is in good standing.
We accept your credentials, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Benzavenga, if you can please take us through what the site's going to look like, and you've heard all the comments and the questions from the board, so I think you know what to focus on.
Yes, hopefully we'll address some of the issues this evening. I will share my screen. I know we talked about a few times already about your 48-hour notice for exhibits. I apologize, but I do have some pretty pictures the board might want to see. And I've already labeled them as exhibits, starting with A20, I believe that's where we're at.
Mr. Hughes, you got this.
Yes, A20 would be the next marking.
Thank you. So there's a few renderings, and everything else that I'm going to present has been issued to the board as part of our formal submission. So I'd like to start out with is what this project's going to look like from the street, from Route 9. We took a lot of time and a lot of care in considering the materials and of what this building will look like. So we're planning on using a brick veneer, a polished or a precision concrete blocks, and metal panels, glass, and some other mix of texture and concrete to help make a real pleasing front for Route 9. And so that we're starting out with, this is what you would see as you drive by in Route 9. Some of my drawings I'm going to skip right through, as they're really not very telling. I'll just, we've gone through the site at length. I can talk about it a little bit. Some of the things that we did that you'll see from a planimetric standpoint that we did to address the overall aesthetic at a cost to the overall project from a gross net rentable is we've articulated the external facade of the site to comply with the design ordinance, and we're providing the recesses as the design ordinance looks like. And with that, every time we recess in the building, it's costing the project 30 net rentable square feet. But we felt and compelled, and we like the idea, and we'll see when some of the renderings, that it really creates a very pleasing exterior to the surrounding neighbors, which is something a little bit more different than what we have seen in the past on some of these projects. Just as a nature, I've designed millions of square feet all across the country of self-storage, and in my professional opinion, this is one of the nicer facilities that we've done. Just in quick run through, operationally, a customer will come into the front office here, transact business, pay a bill, rent a facility, buy some boxes, things like that. So that the office is there. There's toilets for customers, and on the front building we have some exterior access units, and then some interior access units as well. Going forward in my plan set, this is a floor plan of one of our 2-story structures that are on the site. They're pretty much identical to each other, so we don't have to go through them at length. But a customer will be able to come inside the building in this area, and because there is topography of the building, we have some grading issues to deal with. So we're going to come up a little short a ramp, and they'll access their interior units here, and then they also have an access point over here on the side, which faces Route 9. Coming into the second level, they would come up a ramp, park their vehicle in this vicinity, and have access from an on-grade standpoint, which is really convenient in our opinion. From an operational standpoint, you put your products and things on the hand carts that the facility provides, and they can wheel them in instead of having to jockey them into an elevator. So from a customer convenience standpoint, we see the ramp as extremely beneficial to our customer base in helping them unload and load their wares inside the storage units. And the storage units on the second floor are not very large. We're not talking like whole house moving here. We're talking maybe a 1-bedroom apartment, where maximum size on that second floor is a 10 by 15 foot unit. Whereas on the first floor, that's where you'll see the larger units. They tend to be 10 by 20s to 10 by 30s. So again, you're not moving a whole house into the second floor of one of these buildings. You're only, moving maybe an apartment, or you inherited some things from your grandmother and you just don't want to get rid of, but you don't know what to do with. As we move forward, this plan is the other building opposite. It's identical or nearly identical. And again, most of our larger units are at grade level type access, and they're 10 by 25s and 10 by 30s as they ring our site around the building, the area. I'll jump through. We got some smaller units outside as well. Again, people like them because they're fairly convenient. You park your car and you're able to unload into them. This is a roof plan of our site, pretty much very similar to our site plan. We could talk about, again, these are our elevations. This is a street facade elevation. You can see, again, this is our front office. We talked about the brick veneer on the outside. This is the end of one of this storage buildings that faces the inside, but again, we kind of dressed it up fairly nicely. We have some ephes on the one side with some precision ground concrete block, and we've added a little bit of a belt to it with we're going to call it a cast stone, and we've added a cornice feature as well, dressing these buildings up fairly nicely to the exterior. Going forward, this is what you would see. This is one of the two-story structures. Again, we were very sympathetic to the design criteria. This is primarily visible from the inside of the site as opposed to the outside, but again, a lot of mix of materials. There are some articulation in the facade. This is a 10-foot recess from this plane. We've got some glass. We've added some canopies, which add another visual appeal. The base of the building is going to be a nice, again, it's a precision, smooth ground, polished type concrete block. Again, we added a nice cap belt to it, and we have a nice cornice on top. Again, all adding some visual appeal. And then on the longer facades, we got a little bit more creative, where we pop up the parapet a little bit, and we started adding some different colored ephes and different panels, again, to really provide a nice, pleasing look to our buildings. I'll come back to this because I know there's conversation about the ramping, but I'd like to get through the whole character study here. As we go around, this is the other second-story building, identically treated. What I'd like to really talk about is the outside appearance of this is what you would see from the inside courtyard, where you would park next to your storage unit. You have your storage door. Again, we're using combination of two different types of concrete block for textural and visual appeal. There's conversations about not meeting the strict criteria of roof offsets and things like that. But again, this is on the inside. We really took a lot of time on the outside and care to meet the parapet articulations and the facade articulations around the exterior of the perimeter, which the neighbors will really appreciate. As you can see here, this is what we're talking about and how we treated it in panels. So we have what we would call a pilaster. That's again a high quality concrete block, not your standard utilitarian block. It has a cornice detail, and then we have a panel that's like a stucco ephes that has some scoring, and again it has a nice little cap on top of that as well. And then again, we switching to another material. We got a brick veneer here on the outside with a nice cornice detail, and then the base is a very durable material, because again, we're going to have landscapers running up against the outside. We didn't want any type of damage from lawnmowers and things like that. So again, conscious of what's going on in the around the surrounding outside of the facility. To reiterate, there is no lighting on the outside of this site. It's all internal to the site, all focused on the driveways. And I believe all the lighting is set at an elevation that's below the top of these parapets, which are roughly about 14 feet. So the higher one's at 14, and you'll see that the lower one here is at 12'8". So again, really minimizing to the exterior of the site, the visual impacts of lighting. Same type of elevations as it rings around the perimeter of the site. Excuse me, sorry. And then we talked about signage. I don't think I really need to cover the signage, but you can see real quickly, these are the signs that we're talking about, the additional signs, the leasing and the loading sign. Each one of them is only 3 square feet. The height's only 8 inches and they're only 4 feet wide. And I think they're really significant in providing good visual wayfinders on our site.
They're illuminated, is that?
These signs, in fact, are non-illuminated letters. My leasing sign and my loading sign are not illuminated.
Thank you.
So they're sort of like a halo effect, but there's no light behind them. We think that the contrast between the color of the sign and the background of the building. So this is sort of, again, as you're approaching the site, we saw this before, this is Exhibit A21. You're approaching our site going south on Route 9. You'll see our storage sign, pylon sign. I think it's a quite interesting sign, very different than what we see. Again, you'll see how the building sort of really, it's not, it's very soft on the eyes. I think it's a good looking building. And then again, different perspective looking back at the building as you were driving by. And then we put in one of these, this rendering here. I think it's really for the outside resident and adjacent properties of what they might see and how it would look from the outside, and how you could see that we have it's a 14-foot tall parapet and wall, and that by itself, and then the distance from the property line to the wall and from the wall to the buildings, sight lines are really starting to break down because you really can't see because of the angles.
So that parapet wall is on the back of the property behind building number 5?
That's correct. This is the same wall that will run around the whole perimeter of the site as part of the buildings.
It's part of the building, Mr. Chair. It's not a separate wall. It's like exterior. It's the outside facade of the building.
So that would be, that's this here, that wall. So, and it really provides a nice screening effect for a self-storage facility. And I think, working with staff on making a very creative outside appearance, I think it's a fairly successful design. Back to the ramp. As you can see, this is where a customer would park. Our top of the canopy, this would be the size of about a 30-foot box truck, about 12 feet tall. And when you're standing back in this vicinity off property with the building in front of it, you really don't have any sight line, to the vehicular movements that's going on within the site.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little confused with this. Are there storage units on the first floor here? Like behind the ramp?
Internal access. So
okay, gotcha.
On that side, you'd be inside the building, internally accessed. And yes, to address the comment relative, we are fully aware that we're going to have to deal with our waterproofing issues and the fact that we do have additional loading relative to the earth, that if we do burn up against this with the ramp. And when we get to that level of the design detail, we'll have to address that.
Mr. Bensavanga, you also mentioned that there's wheeled carts that are going to be available. So what prevents those wheeled carts from taking a ride down the ramp?
Well, there is a level spot at the top of the ramp. The carts are typically, the way operationally it works is you have to provide a security, so sort of either your driver's license or ID to utilize the carts. They're locked up. You can't they're not just loose for anybody. You have to have, quote, we'll call it permission to use it.
So stay with me on this, please. Mr. Rebel?
Yes.
So what, instead of a smooth ramp, can we have a stepped approach to this? Where it's a little rigid along the way? Where it's there for one purpose and one purpose only and no other purposes?
I would have to yield to Thomas, to Tom.
One
because
second, Mr. Benzavega.
I- oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm asking my board member here.
When you say a stepped approach, you mean instead of a graded ramp, it's stepped with risers and rise and run coming off?
Yes.
But is that maybe, Mr. Chair, to prevent, like you're saying, like skateboarders from using it?
Or anything running away, so to speak, yes.
Make it ribbed, so to speak?
Yeah, someone has a basketball and it, falls out and it runs all the way down the hill, that type of thing. Is there a way to, on the ramp, to put in those protections? I'm not talking speed bumps. I'm talking more of a, an architectural / engineering feat. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Is there something they could put at the top for containment, like a railing that swings out from the building or something to keep something from going down after you've parked? I don't know, as a precaution.
Yeah, that's something to think about. Okay. All right, Mr. Benzavenga, we're just, throwing things out here to try to understand,
I understand.
what a smooth ramp like that, does to the overall aspect of the project.
The ramp itself, excuse me,
12-foot rise.
As far as how it gets detailed and sloped itself, I would have to defer to civil. I'm not, but I understand the desire that we could try and come up with something that might work. Guess we can get creative and scratch our head a little bit.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Are you opposed to the speed bump? Because that's the first thing that came to mind, honestly. It's like at the top of the ramp to prevent a cart if there's a concern or something. Or we can talk with the team, obviously, to come up with something. But is there a concern with the speed bump itself, if that's one of the ideas?
Well, that's something. It's something better than nothing right now, right? I mean,
I'm thinking,
go ahead.
Off the top of my head, we'll call it a curb face that we might even have like at the edge of the transition of a driveway to a roadbed. You're going to get a 1/2 inch to 1 inch lip that'll keep someone from just letting their cart go sliding down. And it's not really a speed bump. It's something that we're all used to and accustomed to driving over. And then again, that'll keep somebody's from little cart from getting away from them. But the area that it's like 60 feet wide, the flat area at the top of that ramp.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Jen.
I just am uncomfortable with redesigning the applicant's site on the fly. I would submit that, obviously the ramp has generated significant concern amongst a number of the board members. I don't think we're going to get to a resolution of that issue this evening, given the fact that it's already 9:45. I would request perhaps that we opine on, let's leave this for a second, opine on the balance of the architecture, because they need some relief for it, just to give the architect some direction, and then we put a pin in this, and then let them go back and try to come up with something creative, coordinate with Charlie's office on whether or not it's going to work from a circulation standpoint, a safety standpoint, et cetera, and then maybe reconvene. And the only reason I'm stepping in now before Mr. McDonough, as much as I'd love to hear him talk, he's going to need a final description of everything that we're going to be looking at in order for him to finalize his testimony. So that would just be my suggestion, because it just seems like we're kind of going around and spitballing, and that makes me very uncomfortable. So
it's a good suggestion, Jen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Arch?
I certainly agree with that. I got the feeling that maybe we wouldn't be going to a vote tonight, just in terms of wanting to solidify things. Obviously, I don't want to go into this with a doing anything on the fly, so I certainly appreciate the suggestion. I would indicate that I know that Mr. Bensavinga has some additional questions that I imagine the board professionals want to ask him. So if we can go through his questioning, and then I'm more than happy. Oh.
I do
Right.
have a couple of things that have come up in throughout testimony that I
think-
would like to clarify on. And
Jen?
Yeah,
so
I could probably like cut through to like the more important items so we can just focus on what the board is really worried about. So as you're aware, given the length of some of these buildings, we have, architectural requirements that there be bump outs. And I do think that the applicant has done a really nice job along the perimeter, the exterior perimeter, of really making the building look like something very decorative. I honestly think it's one of the more creative things that we've seen lately. They do need the relief, however, because the interior buildings, because of the garage doors and those facades, and it's one after the other, does not have the ability to comply with that. I'm not personally super concerned with the interior because you're not going to see it, right? The front building that has like the office, I think that they have complied with the intent of our ordinance for that front building, and the exterior walls along the perimeter of the site comply with what we require. So they do need relief. I don't take exception to the relief because everything that they're asking for a waiver for is internal to the site, and it's not going to be visible to anybody unless you're actually there to use one of the units. So, we have required applicants to come up with creative things. I think they've done a good job in taking every exposed facade and making that compliant, and then asking for the relief on the interior. So, if the board is okay with that, I do think that that's relief that you can grant without a detriment to the intent of what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. So Jen, I'll open, Mr. Bensavenga, is there anything else that you want to add on the record?
there was conversation about fire suppression in these buildings.
I thought there was testimony already that I think there was somebody had testified that all the buildings will have fire suppression. Is that correct?
And that is what I need to clarify. So
Okay.
Since we first started this application, the building code would have required that the exterior perimeter buildings have fire suppression installed. The building code has been changed. It's now the 2022 New Jersey UCC, and self-storage facilities that have exterior access units only up to a certain square footage are not required to have, by the building code, fire suppression. So the office building will have fire suppression, and the two-story buildings will definitely have fire suppression.
I would suggest in your hiatus before you come back, you rethink that. I would suggest that every building be suppressed. Given the fact that you're here for a use variance, probably something that they're going to require anyway. So you guys probably should chat about that before you come back.
Thank you.
Understood.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to add on to that, I second Jen's point on that. That was going to be my next comment, but I just, not to belabor the point about the ramp, I just want to clarify for the board, building number 5, that's to the west, that's the rearmost building. If I'm looking at the architectural rendering correctly, it says the elevation of that highest most parapet is 125.39. That loading ramp is at elevation 124. You do have single family residential properties to the west of this site that are 2-story. You do have people who have lived there for a number of years that could be potentially used to looking at a wooded rear of a site that's now going to be cut down, albeit to be replanted with landscaping, but landscaping takes time to grow to full maturity. Now they're going to be looking at a loading area potentially out of their back window with lights, till 10 p.m. at night. That we haven't gotten to public yet, and I don't think we're gonna get to there tonight.
Well,
but-
I don't know, Charlie. I may have to open it up to public before we shut down tonight.
Yeah, I could, I'd be interesting to hear some members of the public, whether any of them are concerned on that, but I think that's something for the applicant to consider. It certainly seems like, while I get the at-grade is an easier access and things like that, it certainly seems like a creative way to eliminate not providing an elevator. And I will point out for the applicant's benefit, right? If they do provide an elevator, overruns and things of that nature are accepted from the height restrictions. So there's no, that's not something prohibiting them from providing, an elevator if it needed an overrun for mechanicals or pistons or anything like that, hydraulics.
Got it.
One thing that I would just like to clarify, and I certainly appreciate those comments, is that the design, the over-under design of the with the access to the second floor grade, is not necessarily unique to this site. It's not something that is a novel concept that we created. It's actually a concept that is utilized in self-storage. So I just want to make sure that the board is aware that this isn't an attempt to just avoid elevators and a cost. There is a real user benefit to being able to have your car access to your second floor unit, as anybody that has used a self-storage facility in the past would obviously be able to understand that there is a preference to that. But I certainly understand there's other considerations, there's other concerns. I just want to make sure the board is aware that there isn't a singular drive towards cost savings.
Mr. Arch, like you said, there is the other considerations, which are the residents. So we'll hear from them shortly. Okay. And board members have any other questions for Mr. Benzavanga?
Not at this time.
All right. We heard the testimony of the three professionals, the applicant. We haven't heard the planner. I don't think we need to hear the planner tonight. I'd like to open it up to public if the board agrees, so that we can hear some of the residents. Now, they've heard what we've heard, and we'd like to hear their comments.
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Mertens, so are you making a motion to open up the
Yes,
public?
I'm going to make a motion to open the public.
Okay, do I have?
I'll second.
I got second from Mr. Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Eileen, we're going to open it up to public.
The meeting will now be opened up to the public. If you are calling in, you could press *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Nobody is currently calling in as of now.
Well, let's give it a second. And no one's raising their hands either, huh?
Nope, nobody is raising their hands.
Okay.
One just did.
Candace Dovenero is coming in the meeting now.
Okay.
You did.
All right. We can hear you.
Okay, great. So I don't know why you can't see me. That's so weird because it says stop video. I can screenshot that.
Can you
So
start video, Ms. Dovenero?
let me see. I mean, I do Zooms all the time, so it's like odd.
Is it possible that something's over your camera? Because it does look like the camera's on, but it's just showing black.
You are right.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Arch.
Einstein, thank you.
We lost you again.
Looking out for members of the public.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Dovenero, Mr. Bear, for the
Wait.
record, please.
Yes. Ms. Stovall, can you raise your right hand?
I can.
Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
It is.
State your name.
Candace Stobanero, 58 Victory Road, Howell, New Jersey, 07731.
The witness is sworn, Mr.
Thank you.
member of the
Welcome back,
public is
Ms.
sworn, Mr.
Dovenera.
Chairman.
I am in my Santa outfit still.
Okay.
I'm not giving it up. I'm sorry. No, it's just comfy. So my questions are to the board. Number one, about the LED lighting for the residents. Like, there's LED lighting that's going to be installed, and that's supposedly going to be less than the halogen lighting, but actually they do require, they actually can be brighter than halogen lighting.
Charlie?
They can.
One
Yeah,
second.
Mr. Chair, that's what we discussed. They do need a waiver from exceeding the maximum average light intensity throughout the parking area. I'll let the applicant's engineer provide some testimony, but they talked about the lighting being building mounted, focusing inwards towards the site, house side shield, downward facing, and things of that nature, as well as restricting the color temperature. But I think that would be something for Mr. Mueller, the applicant's engineer, to talk about more on.
Mr. Mueller?
Before he says anything, I just want to also point out the site is on Route 9. Like, we're not in the middle of a residential area. We're in a highway commercial area where the ambient lighting is such that, you know, I'm not opining one way or the other on the LED versus the halogen, but I just want to, like, let's put things into perspective here. We're along the Route 9 corridor, not far from major shopping centers that have lighting that that are on all night long. So I just want to put that out there before the applicant responds.
And that's why I love you, Jennifer.
No
Because you
problem.
actually put it in perspective. This is where this place may or may not belong. But my concern is that the usage, so they're predicting that, can you please reiterate on how many people will be entering this premises? Because I have a storage unit on Extra Space, and I can guarantee that there is no less than 200 people in and out a day. So I'm not sure on the amount of units there, but I want to like confirm that. And that's
Tom,
like, I think that's less than a mile away, actually, than Blue Moon, where you're looking.
Justin, if you, my apologies, Justin, if you want to, please comment on the traffic generation.
Sure. Based upon the data provided by the NJDOT, we would anticipate, as I said, between 15 and 20 vehicles during any of the peak hours. Daily, what we anticipate is about 190 trips. So it's about 95 cars in, 95 cars out throughout the day.
7 days a week?
Yep.
So what about on the weekends?
On the weekends, you have a slightly greater peak. That's what I said. So you have 39 trips, 23 in and 16 out during the peak hour. And
What exactly is your peak hour? Because I know that my Extra Space storage is like open till 10, I think. Or
so
I
typically,
actually enter with a passcode, 24 hours, I think. Yeah.
So I can't speak to that one. I haven't researched that one specifically. But what we would see typically for a self-storage use is the middle of the day is when you see your highest customer enter and exit. And that's where that 39 trips, or that 23 in and 16 out could be anticipated.
Justin, can I interject here? Based on our experience, because we operate like close to 50 facilities, and it's usually Saturday during the day, that's the peak. And with all the respect to the DOT and all their research, based on because we have engines that we monitor based on our market data and our research and our actually store operation, we're well below the numbers that we're discussing here on the peak and during the normal business hours. At least that's our experience. But we respect the experts and we respect the obviously the published data.
And also, and sorry to interrupt, I just want to comment on, you had indicated that you're used to a 24-hour access, and I just want to clarify, we're not seeking any sort of 24-hour access to this, that the hours of operation will be set.
Okay, so where exactly are your other facilities, sir? I don't.
If you'd like, you can look up our it's.
No, I think that the board needs to look up your other facilities.
Well, actually, if the witness can
Ms.
answer the
Dovenero.
question, if the witness can answer the question generally, as opposed to saying let the resident or the board do research, that would
Sure,
be
sure. I'll answer. I was just giving enough more
Yeah,
information. We
he's
operate
here,
in
so
New
let's
York.
ask him.
Absolutely. We operate in New York. We operate in New Jersey. We operate in Pennsylvania.
She's looking for specific towns. She's not looking for states.
Yes,
So
please.
what towns and let's forget the out-of-state operations.
Yeah.
What
You
town
want New Jersey?
in New Jersey
We
do you
operate
have
in New Jersey, in Piscataway. We are opening a facility in Livingston that should be up and running in the next month or two. We're completing construction as we speak. In Pennsylvania, we are under development. We have Lanham in Maryland, and we have a bunch of other facilities. I don't recall them on the West Coast as well. In New York City, we have in Maspeth, Queens.
this would be your only facility or your first facility in Monmouth County, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does that help?
Ms. Dovenero?
Yes.
We can't go on all night, so we have new rules on the board that.
Mr. Saya, I need to be at work. I need to get up at 4:30. So I
Okay.
need to feed my animals. So these are questions that I just have to ask for other people because they're
Okay.
not available.
All
So
right.
I know that you have patience for me. I really love your atrium and I want to be there, but yes. So
well, we haven't had an answer from the applicant's engineer on the on the lighting issue. So maybe if you just let the witness answer the question,
fine.
and if you have another one, you can proceed.
thank you. I will.
Yeah, I believe the question was that LED lights could be brighter than metal halide lights or halogen lights. The answer is obviously that could be correct, but we specifically designed an exact lighting fixture that limits the amount of lighting to what we designed. So we do have a very dim light here. It has no spillover whatsoever to the rear property line. There's no lights on the rear of the site, no lights on the south or northern portions of the site. So we're not contributing to any additional lighting off-site beyond what might already be out there from ambient lighting, as Ms. Beam mentioned a few minutes ago. So it's completely controlled. You can't increase the brightness or anything like that. There's a maximum brightness that is going to be forced just naturally by the fixture that we're proposing.
So the board will approve the LED lights because there's different, I have LED lights in my house and honestly, I turn them on and they're light and low and then all of a sudden they're stadium lights. So I don't live right there. And I'm going to say that I don't live right there, but I am concerned with all of the things that are going on in our town. I think that you are picking Route 9 and that is a great place to have a storage facility, but I know there's others. That's just my concern.
Okay. Ms. Dovenero, next question.
Next question. So, well, we went through that they don't have any other facilities in Monmouth County. So that's kind of interesting. So really, I mean, Passaic County is totally not Monmouth County. New York, Queens, not Monmouth County. But
Okay.
I'm not going to rule it out. I'm not going to push it. I'm just going to go with the LED lighting and I'm going to go with, you guys make me tired, but I do love watching these. I don't know. I really think my main concern was LED lighting.
Okay.
And there is no conflict with another storage facility within a mile.
We don't have any provision in our ordinance that would preclude it.
Okay. And
I do want, just going back to the lighting for the last time, I just want to be very clear that Wawa is basically right next door. And those lights are on 24 hours a day. So I don't if you look at the lighting plan that's proposed, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, it's 0 foot candles at the property line, which means there's no spillage over the property line. So you're on the Route 9 corridor, you have a convenience store with gas, like basically right next door that's open 24 hours with signage, canopies, building, et cetera, that's open 24 hours. The applicant committed to closing at 10, turning the lights off at 10:30 and lowering the security lighting to what's minimally acceptable. So respectfully, I would submit that I think they've done their part with respect to the lighting. I also want to state for the record that there hasn't been an application before either board in the last, I can't tell you how many years, that has fully complied with our lighting ordinance. So I think I understand your concern. I think in a different section of town, it probably would be more appropriate. But here on Route 9, and given the testimony that's been provided, I take no exception to the lighting that they're proposing.
I actually trust you, Jennifer, so I'm not even gonna I have no words. I trust Jennifer, and I know that area, so I know there's a lot of lighting. There are no homes right there, and that's a great statement. I agree.
Okay.
So I mean, if the board agrees, but I think there's a lot of things like with the inclines, again, they were stated by the board. I don't really need to say anything else. I mean, the board put their,
Ms. Delvenero, I don't think the board's going to be voting tonight.
no, we're not.
The applicant has to go back. The
can
applicant
go-
has to go back and do some homework.
Yep.
Okay.
That's agreed.
And then when they come back, we'll hear their revised or addendum to the testimony. And then we will open it up to the planner, and then we'll open it up to public again, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Saya.
You're welcome. Eileen, do we have anyone else?
No one else from the public is raising their hand.
All right, Mr. Mertens.
I think we got it out to public, and I think.
Can we make a motion to close the public now?
Oh, yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay, and then we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, Mr. Arch.
Thank you. I think I read the board correctly. I think the intent is that we are going to adjourn after this witness and not go on to the planner. I would simply ask that obviously if there's any concerns or issues to address them to your planners, and we will certainly have a dialogue with them to address anything that has come up tonight. And I would request that we can adjourn this application tonight, and that we get a date certain so that we don't have to renotice for the next
Got
hearing.
it, Mr. Arch. Eileen, we need you.
I have one application scheduled for March 13th, or I have March 27th open.
You know what it is on the 13th? Do you know what the application is?
It's Rod Zarelli has to finish his application.
Will that work, Jen?
Yeah, I don't think that it's gonna take very long.
So you got March 13th, Mr. Arch. Will that work for you?
I would just, with the board's indulgence, if I can just do a quick survey of my professionals, most importantly, Mr. McDonough and I guess Mr. Mueller and Mr. Bensavinga, because I think they are the ones that might be retestifying. I get a thumbs up. We're good on the architect, and we'll assume we're good on Mr. McDonough as well. And I'll just ask Elias, any issues with that, or we're good for that date, March 13th?
We're good.
We're good.
Thank you.
I thank the members of the board. Thank you. I appreciate participation. It really does make the process, I think, more engaging and more fun. And we hope to turn you around on this on the ramp idea. It's
right.
it's a good idea.
So you're going to need an extension of time as well. So case number BA 2206, Insight Development Partners LLC. This case is going to be carried further till March 13th with an expiration date of, Mr. Bear,
Well, when is the current expiration?
March 3rd.
So would you, Mr. Arch, do you consent to us extending to the end of March? In case there's any other issues, or do you want to?
Yeah, no objection. I consent to the extension to the end of March.
Okay, then,
Throughout the process, if we feel we need a further extension, I'll certainly communicate that.
Thank you, Mr. Arch.
Thank you.
Appreciate your courtesy.
with an extension to March 30th, 2023. Thank you to the applicant. We will look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Mr. Aguilar? Aguilar? John?
There he is.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, did I forget you today?
It's okay.
Are
I'm
you
here in
good?
spirit.
Are you good?
I am good.
Okay, as long as you're good, we'll make sure that we keep you in the game, okay?
You got it, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you to the professionals. It was a good kickoff meeting, and next meeting, Eileen, is
January 23rd.
January 23rd, Monday. Look forward to seeing everyone then. And can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No nays, thank you. All right, Eileen, we can shut it down. Everyone be well, be safe, be healthy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
All right, everyone.
Night.